the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoak Show. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
Craig Smoak to my right. I'm David Smoak. Good afternoon. It's a Wednesday afternoon, and some news involving the Big 12, from media days to BYU getting their point guard back who was nibbling, along with some NCAA and college football financial and sports news. A team moving from one conference to another, but we'll have to pay the price for that. A lot to get to. We'll hear from Auburn's Alex Golish on Gus Malzahn, Craig Smoak, and then we will watch today mainly what we do a lot of course, college football, off the radar with Craig, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Everything else but that is the story that at least we have to bring it up, is what might be happening with LIV Golf, which of course jumped into the scene just a handful of years ago, and the possibility that they might be shutting down.
Yeah, well, first things first, what's up, chat? What's up, everybody out there watching along with us and joining us live or after the fact? Appreciate you all. And, yeah, I think, we've made some changes to the show in this past week, and I think that part of the changes that could continue on is, we can get outside the breadth of college sports on occasion when there's particularly some interesting stories going on, and especially during the off season. During football season, not a lot of time to veer in and out to too many other things because there's so much going on just simply in college football. But yeah, I think the LIV Golf story is fascinating for everybody out there, because whether you paid attention to it or not, you probably heard something about it, and this big disruptor to the golf world a few years ago, and the Saudi backing from their PIF money fund, and all this investment and the stealing of guys, or not stealing, but the buying of guys off the PGA Tour, big names like Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau, among others, and Phil Mickelson, obviously, and so on and so forth. The big fighting back and forth. They're going to put the PGA out of business. Now, the positive of LIV is that it did lead to the PGA making changes that I think have turned out for the better for PGA golfers. And I think, if anything, it's also brought the PGA closer together as far as those who are on that side of the fence and want to make it the best product and make it the greatest golf in the world. I think it improved the PGA in its own way by existing and being at least a verbal threat. Now, as far as it actually being a threat beyond, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, brother, it's never really amounted to much. It's not really registered on the TV screens with the ratings and big coverage like you thought that it might, or you hoped that it would. It hasn't led to any shakeup of the golf world that substantially changed it for the better. It's not something that's on the tip of the tongue of any casual fans you come across. Now, I don't run in golf circles, so I don't know if guys are sitting back at the country club after a round of 18, they're cracking beers and watching TV. Maybe they're talking LIV sometimes. Yep. I don't know, but certainly in casual conversation, which is what I'm mostly a part of, LIV is non-existent. I know there is a fan base that I'm not sure how large it really is, but not large enough to where it's been able to provide LIV with enough to avoid this conversation, which is, yes, that there are a lot of rumors going around that LIV Golf could be announcing, or there could be announcements surrounding LIV Golf in the coming hours or a couple of days that they're shutting down operations. This all based off, if I'm reading things correctly, is I guess the Saudi fund came out with kind of where the money was going, I guess, and people took note of, there's not any LIV Golf mentioned here. Like, where's LIV Golf on this docket? And that was, I think, what kind of set off this chain of reaction to it. So am I accurate there by saying that?
Yeah. No, everything you've said is true. It's just a matter of Brooks Koepka. Patrick Reed left the LIV Tour. Reed can get back on the PGA Tour. I think it's a year after his last tournament, but there are penalties. financial and some things that they will not be a part of at least for a year. I'm not sure about how long that is. And honestly, it doesn't matter. They're going to lose the ability to get any kind of sharing of revenue, et cetera, bonus points, bonus money that's a part of the PGA Tour. But it is interesting because Koepka came back and Patrick Reed before that, I think it was. And we saw them at the Masters. They both played very well. But you wonder if DeChambeau, who didn't, Rahm, who didn't, and others who are a part of LIV that played pretty well, you wonder if there was at least in their head some sort of, hey, what's going on? And so we will know that soon because that seems like they're meeting in New York City, some partners or it's not that they don't have the money. They have the money, but at the same time, the reason why most people have money is because they're not dumb when it comes to making financial decisions.
Well, this is why you don't want these same folks creeping into like college football, I think, in the future. And there's been talk about just private investments, private equity, those types of things. And even so much as I think the Big 12's at least crossed paths with a rumor about potentially getting involved with Saudi, just because I think strongly of the Endeavor connections, WWE, UFC, very deep in bed with the Saudis, lots of big events and big money draws with the Saudis over the last few years. And you have that connection with the Big 12. So when they've also been a group that's talked about meeting with private equity or whatever, it would not be insane to think, well, if anybody was going to do it, it would be maybe the Big 12 that would do it because they're already swimming in that pool with the people who are pulling some of those strings. But the thing with the Saudi stuff is, yeah, like you think the money's unlimited, but even for people who have unlimited money, it's not necessarily unlimited. So yeah, apparently there's a meeting of executives going on in New York City, and there's just reports about the fact that I guess they're spreading out their plans for moving forward, and it appears that they're shifting money to different events, things like more Saudi locally organized events and less LIV. So I don't know. That's kind of what I've seen today. It would not be necessarily the biggest sports story in the world for everybody, but it would be significant, I think, because of just how much of a disruptor it was hoping to be and how big of a splash it made initially just with its existence, and then all of the concerns that it caused as far as like, what does this mean for the future of golf and the PGA, and how does this spread into the rest of American sports and all these different things? Well, it's shutting down after a few years would quiet a lot of that. Yeah,
you wonder if it'll get the same attention that when it took Mickelson and others and tried to lure others and got some big names away from the PGA Tour. And what happens to those players? But Tom Watson, Paxton brought this up, and then we'll go on to college football and basketball news. Tom Watson said he thinks former players like Koepka and Reed or anyone should not be a part of any kind of revenue sharing for perhaps a certain amount of time a year. And now they win money if they win an event, but also go to the Korn Ferry Tour, which is kind of like the next level down, and play there and earn points or whatever to get their card back on the PGA Tour, which is kind of like sending a Major League Baseball player, not because he's injured, down to the minor leagues to get his game swing or his pitch back.
Oh, and let's face it, also to embarrass them a little bit as well.
Oh, yeah, no,
a little bit of punishment as well for being on the other side. So, yeah, it's very interesting. It sounds like they're wanting to take all that money and put it elsewhere, and LIV's not much in the plan. So, yeah, that will be interesting to see that become official, like people are feeling like it might here in the next 24 hours.
A lot of writers, a lot of columns about it. Yeah, and I even saw a little bit of the PGA, the Golf Channel, discussing it too. Big 12 Media Days, July the 7th and July the 8th in Frisco, Texas. That's where they've been before. They've also been at AT&T Stadium, etc. Big 12 Media Days. Here's the first day on Tuesday. Arizona State, Baylor, BYU, UCF, Colorado, the Cougars, Houston Cougars. By the way, we're going to have their cornerbacks coach on the show tomorrow. And Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, day one. Now let's go to day two, then we'll discuss it. Day two with Arizona, Cincinnati, Iowa State, KU, Kansas State, TCU, also Utah and West Virginia.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's just media days ultimately, but it is a nice event to kind of get ramped up and to get your appetite whet for actual football after a long off season of just talking about it. It's like the Super Bowl of talking to get ready for the rest of the season, because you're just there interviewing coaches and players and conversing with other media guys. So it's a fun event to kind of regroup from the off season and then start the countdown to the regular season, because the regular season's only a couple of months away at that point, and you can kind of feel it in the air. Everybody's starting to get ramped up for that. So, they decided to go back to Frisco. That's the smart move, I think. They tried Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. I feel like that was just a bit too much of a pull west for a majority of the media that was having to come over for that, and probably a bit more expensive. And given the state of things right now, probably smarter to not go big with Las Vegas right now. Although Las Vegas, I'm sure would, no, please come back.
And it would be okay. To rotate it a little bit, but it's for us. Let's be honest. There is no airline tickets. We will stay at A, B, and B no matter where we're at. But that is like 80% of the conference is not in there. What 75% of the conference or so?
Yeah, I don't think West Virginia. I mean, I'm sure West Virginia, shout out to Coos Walker, would love to go to Vegas again, but for them, it probably doesn't matter either way. You're going to Dallas or you're going to Las Vegas. You're having to travel halfway across the country, no matter what, if you're a Mountaineer fan. So I'm sure they'd love something in Orlando. But yeah, I mean, there's always a pull for Vegas, but Frisco is a nice, somewhat centrally located spot, and it works well. It's worked in the past. It'll work again this year just fine. You don't need a big NFL stadium to conduct the same things you can do in the offshoot domed practice facility / high school playoff arena that is where media days will now be. But day one, that's going to be packed. I mean, Arizona State and Dillingham, BYU and Satake, Dave Aranda in his hot seat. Dion will be there, Scott Frost, Willie Fritz, new head coach Eric Morris, and Joey McGuire. That's a pretty damn loaded day number one there.
Yeah, who would win if they were one team against day two? Looks like day one might get the edge with 3 or 4 of the top teams in the conference.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like interesting storylines and the best teams, it's not even close. It's day number one with Texas Tech and BYU. And okay, I mean, maybe as far as the best, but Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, Arizona State.
Yep.
It's a pretty good starting point.
4 of those 8 teams are what you think are going to be a big part of the mix in winning the conference in 26.
And then Oklahoma State's kind of been just sort of there, and I love Oklahoma State, and I'm one of their biggest proponents of hiring Eric Morris, and I'm one of the biggest proponents of how important it is for Oklahoma State to matter, like they have mattered more than they haven't. But the last couple years, obviously a bit of a drop off the map. And I think Eric Morris is putting them back on the map. So they're far more interesting. And you know what? We can actually maybe interview their head coach at media days for the first time
ever.
It's
been a while with Gundy. It probably was before we started having the media days that I can remember. It's been a decade.
So I think we can get, Dillingham will be shaky. We'll get Kalani. We'll get Dave. We'll get Willie and Joey. I think all those guys are givens. We'll see. Probably not Dion, but we might get the Oklahoma State coach for the first time ever at media day.
We'll get Eric Morris because we already have, and we will again.
Then day 2, Arizona, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU, Utah, West Virginia. There's still some interesting storylines there, and some good teams. I mean, Utah and I think TCU were like, TCU had a down year, 9-3 last year. They've got a pretty high bar, or 9-4. They got a pretty high bar, so they're still a very good team. But then a handful of teams, Arizona should be good. But then they're K-State with Colin Klein should also. I think they're my choice for most improved outside of Oklahoma State, because Oklahoma State's got the most room to improve. So I think those two will be jockeying for biggest addition of wins from the year prior. And then we'll see with Kansas and Iowa State and West Virginia. I think there's a lot of questions, Cincinnati as well, about those schools. But it's good to see the dates put in place and know where they're going to be and know where we will likely be there in early July after what's hopefully a very entertaining and fun July 4th weekend. Turn around and go to Frisco to start talking some 2026 Big 12 football season.
All right, so Rob Wright, remember him? He was at Baylor. Then last year he signed a deal, then ended up at BYU and played pretty well. At the end of the year, it wasn't quite what BYU fans wanted. Well, he went on the open market because you can, went to the transfer portal, spent time talking and visiting with Kentucky, perhaps going to compare whatever they could offer compared to what BYU was offering. And then all of a sudden, this thing flipped last night. And there's a picture actually of him already signed, sealed, and delivered. There he is. He's going back to BYU for next year.
I mean, signing a contract doesn't mean anything, but it's a nice touch on him.
Well,
making it official. No, I know.
You're right, but I do believe finally, and Baylor probably learned from this, that you need to protect yourself. So if in fact somebody leaves, you've got, okay, we need this back from you, or we get this from you.
Yeah, I'm just slightly joking there because it hasn't always meant everything with him or in general. But now I do think schools are figuring out the way to phrase things and way to drop contracts to ensure that they're protected. But at least initially that wasn't the case in some cases like his. But it's great news for BYU. It's absolutely phenomenal news for BYU basketball. Somehow their defensive rating's already gone down for next year. But sorry, I cannot make a couple cracks, man. I'm sorry. But no, I in all seriousness think that that's a great bit of news for BYU basketball and Kevin Young, and I expect that they'll be really good again next year. This year left you wanting so much more, but it was still a thrill ride seeing AJ DeBansa do his thing, and Rob Wright's a very good player. I mean, he does need to get better defensively. There are some things that he can stand to improve upon, but he's one of the best guards in college basketball as far as experience and who will be coming back next year. So, yeah, you'd rather have that than not have that if you're BYU, and have him for a second year to just further ingratiate himself into what Kevin Young's trying to do, and they're going to have talent around him. They're not going to be short on talent in this era and with that head coach. So, yeah, I think it's a smart move for Rob Wright. I'm sure that his little venturing out to Kentucky to see what they had to say out there, and to whoever else he may be, or his dad or whoever is answering phone calls for, I'm sure that helped raise the price for him to eventually sign.
I don't think so. I get the impression, talking to a couple of guys that cover BYU, that the price, at least the reporting now, is that the price between what BYU offered and what Kentucky was offering, that it wasn't much of enough of a difference to go to Kentucky.
Okay. Well, I mean, regardless, if he didn't get a price raise, then this is stupid business. So I would assume that there is a price raise of some sort, because that would just be smart business to do, would be to, I'm going to go possibly to Kentucky. You need to give me at least $500,000 more.
Right. And
I would rather hear that report respectfully. I think BYU reporters do a great job, but from somebody not in Utah, because I do think there's still a little bit of like, no, it's just the culture, and it's just the same thing. And we hear that not there only, but in every other place when a decision like this is made. So yeah, regardless, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like the whole comment is just that I would assume that he got a pay raise because he's coming back for another year and he's got teams like Kentucky involved. So I think by default, but it doesn't matter. Just on the surface, what he's making, good for him and all the business partners or whatever that are involved in this, and good for BYU to land a star point guard, even though they had already landed him one time before, but to keep him in the fold is really big time for them. I do think that Kentucky is as much of the interesting story here once you get past BYU and how big this is for them, and also the fact that there's a lot of BYU fans are like, oop, delete tweet from the past couple of days. But for Kentucky, oof.
Now, when they spent all that money, at least reportedly in the lower 20s, they didn't get Rob Wright. They have lost a couple of other players. A guard, Colin Chandler, who's from Utah, is going to play at BYU. He was originally committed to them, then Utah, then ended up in Kentucky after a mission trip. So, yeah, they're kind of – and Mark Pope feels the heat. You know he does. So it'll be interesting how they react. They thought they were going to get him if he visited, and they did not.
Well, and getting Chandler, as you mentioned, was a big win for BYU, and then to now have Rob Wright as an addition of sorts. That's a nice couple of portal moves by the Cougars there. So yeah, they're in good shape, and we'll delve further into them as we go along here. But I think you're feeling great about what's going on in Provo, whereas I know they were excited about Chandler regardless, but the Rob Wright thing, you could tell there was kind of there was the element of He wasn't that good anyways, or whatever. And then there was also like just the sour grapes. And so the beautiful thing is now it doesn't have to be sour grapes because he's not going anywhere. But yeah, on the Kentucky side of things, it's a time where they are very on edge as far as whether Mark Pope's the guy or not. There's a lot of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I think there's several people that now are both feet out already on Mark Pope, just a couple years into this thing. I think he is in a must-win situation next year based on just reading the tea leaves and reading some of the message board stuff and the reports out there of like, yeah, there's an immense amount of pressure on Mark Pope to win next year at Kentucky, and having a guy like Rob Wright, who would have been one of the biggest portal pickups in the country so far, to be on campus and visiting and doing all that, and then just go right back where he came from, that leaves you with some egg on your face. And so, yeah, Mark Pope, that was a big negative for the Kentucky side of things, for as much of a positive as it was for the BYU side of things.
Spencer Allred is in the view. I noticed him in the chat. Maybe has been there before, but I reached out to him. I said, I haven't really noticed it. I'm in there always trying to be a hall monitor and also going back and forth with some of the viewers. He's a big BYU fan, a Mark Pope fan, and asked, in fact, what's the deal? They've lost 2 top prospects to BYU in a week. Love what Kentucky's doing, but Mark Pope is struggling. There is no doubt he is.
Yeah, shout out to Spencer. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for asking a question. And anybody in chat, you want to throw in your 2 cents? I mean, you guys kind of handle yourselves, I know, but it's always good to have you along for the ride. And so shout out to you, Spencer. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, I don't know what the root of it is. I know that at least a few months ago when Kentucky was kind of struggling a little bit, there was a lot of angst about the media rights deal that they had signed. I don't know if you remember that story or not, but they had kind of like handed over all of their media and NIL and all that to this other company that had attachments to Mitch Barnhart. And that all kind of has turned out to be not at all what it was supposed to be or what they hoped it would be. And that's at least been what's been one of the curveballs as far as that side of things and the organization and the money piece of the NIL. So that's a move that I know has been looked down upon tremendously by the Kentucky faithful. Beyond that, I don't know what else you would factor into it other than you just aren't coaching well enough or you don't have the right mix of guys. I mean, then that's just like generic, I know, but I don't know well enough to say, well, it's their 3-point percent, specifically the play. It's just not working for multiple reasons right now for them. So he's got a lot of pressure. I know he was beloved at BYU and it hurt to watch him go, but I'm sure there's plenty of people like yourself that are still very much supporting him, want to see him do well. But there are a lot of Kentucky fans that are like, for them, it is this year, you better show something or we want a new guy. And we want somebody to come in here and get this thing right.
We've got some more business in college football and athletics to get to, and we will. We've had a couple of these stories for about 2 or 3 days. They're still timely now. We'll get to that. But a couple of notes, Ross Dellinger and others, the NCAA Division I cabinet reviewing the 5-year age-based eligibility concept during a meeting yesterday and also meeting yet again today. This is all about the possibility they're trying to curtail or contain the ages of college athletes. Now, I'm not legally smart enough to know that can this even pass the smell test? I don't know, but I love the idea. As soon as your athletic career or your career as a high school student athlete is over, the clock starts ticking. However, there are some examples where a guy might – Jordan Shipley at Texas twice had bad injuries to his knee, played 6 years. But when it started getting 7, 8, and 9, so they're talking about that again today, and they want to pass it. 5 years, clock ticking, you can play all 5, and that's it.
It's a great idea in principle, but there are some problems with it. And timely, we're talking about BYU. What happens to missionaries? What about Ryder Lyons, Ryder Lyons is going to be in the NFL in like 4 years if all goes according to plan. But he's got to take his mission trip before he joins BYU, right? So that's an extra year older than he is. And he may not be the best example because maybe he might even be young for his age. I don't know. But just saying, or the guy who wants to go play minor league baseball first. And then he comes back like Chris Wenke did back in the day. Or those who have like serious debilitating injuries. I've seen as far as the injuries part go, people go, well, that's just the breaks, kid. Like, that's just, if you have multiple knee injuries, like, that's just too bad. You get your 5 years. And if you had 4 knee injuries, like, sorry for you, but you can't play year 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So the injury part of it is certainly the obvious one. But yeah, the joining a year later because you're a missionary.
The enrollment date is what they might be discussing and trying to clarify that. So it's not when you graduate from high school, but
So
when
5
you
years once you enroll. Okay, that would make sense.
That's just that's part of the discussion.
Well, those are the things like that we're talking it out here. It's not like, well, what about this? Why is this? Well, that's what they're like. Yeah, these are just the questions you have to ask out loud. So what about people who go on mission trips and they don't start their college career right away? They're automatically a year older than they would have been. So if you're saying there's a hard cap, like you got to be 25 years old, and if you can't be a day past 25 years old, that wouldn't work necessarily. The injury piece is such a wild card because, yeah, I don't want to see Chandler Morris. I hate to use him again, but people trying to use mental health as a reason to just prolong their college careers versus somebody who's really had just terrible, awful luck. And they just cannot seem to stay healthy. And you're just like throwing them to the wayside because their body won't respond correctly. And then there's other parts of it that you got to look at and say, well, what about this? What about that? But in general, I do like the idea of putting a cap. Now, I've already seen the lawyers circling like vultures in the sky, just circling like, where's the latest NCAA attempt to do so? Oh, there they are. You already see the guys out in full force saying phrases like antitrust exemption. You would need that to make this work to try to avoid lawsuits. Many already saying, well, this is just ripe for more lawsuits.
Oh, yeah, you might just have machine guns out there. Well, I'm talking about legally.
So there's already a lot of people lining up to say, well, this won't pass the smell test if they don't do this or that or the other. So, for example, they would need an antitrust exemption to ensure that they could avoid a lot of the legalities.
Here's a note from the NCAA, and this is from a Ross Dellinger tweet from in the past. No waiver requests, red shirts, or exceptions will be permitted except for a small group of outliers, including maternity leave, military service, or religious missions.
Right. So, yeah, I was trying to think of what a couple of the other examples were. Military service I was going to bring up, but yeah, you're right on pregnancy as well. You don't want to hurt somebody's eligibility because they got pregnant and had a child. So that would be awful for human beings to do to one another, and for that organization to use that as some kind of hard and fast rule. So yeah, there should be exemptions because it's not just black and white. But I mean, I like the idea of trying to put a limitation on this thing, but I also know it's going to run into the courtroom. So we'll see what their tactic is, how they try to insulate themselves with the verbiage and how they would execute this to avoid maybe some lawsuits, but they're not going to be able to shut them all down without like broad legislation. So maybe that's where a Cody Campbell's work behind the scenes, or people getting into the president's ear about college sports, or those types of efforts, maybe those pay off in that way. I don't know, but I like the idea. So it's a start. Clearly, eligibility is a major issue that is like the topic of topics this offseason, whereas in the past it's been NIL and it's been realignment, and those things are still very much out there in the ether. But I do feel like if there's a theme to this offseason, correcting the playoffs, always another one as well. Like there's all these various things that are every offseason topics now at this point, but the big one is certainly eligibility. We're seeing that brought up quite a bit, and they're obviously not wasting a lot of time in trying to figure that out and make that pretty concrete. So I'm all for that.
All right. How about this? The NCAA, the cabinet meeting today, as we mentioned, and yesterday approved a new rule allowing athletes to sign with agents prior to entering college and maintain their eligibility. There is also, even to that point, of high school athletes, and we're starting to see a little bit NIL in certain states more than others. This is going to most likely get passed. Cabinet also allowed students and athletes to accept prize money in their respective sports without compromising their eligibility, like, for example, getting paid in that preseason or early season tournament in Vegas, and adopt a rule requiring athletes with opt-in professional draft football, basketball to withdraw from said draft in order to compete in college athletics. Now, then, of course, you have Bediako and Nanji and others, and they try to maybe will tighten up those loopholes there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's really being addressed here. It does sound, though, like if you're a high school player and you were to go play in some super elite NIL tournament, that you could take your prize money home now versus not being able to do that before. Or like we had with the Olympians, right, where they were in college and they were gymnasts, but they can't take the sponsorship money. We've had incidents like that in the past. There's been so many rules changes and just so much turnover that it's hard to keep track of exactly where we are sometimes. But that just the part about being able to accept money as a high schooler just makes sense. You shouldn't be penalized because you're just a little bit younger if you have earning power or you've gone and earned something. So I don't really have a pushback against that. I know there's probably a lot of people like, well, they're too young or they don't deserve it. It's like, well, if they're generating it, then you can't say they don't deserve it. The old man in me, yeah, at first I'm kind of like, what? But I don't really see a justification to not allow them to make money that they've set up themselves to make by being good at whatever sport they're playing or being a part of a team that goes and wins a tournament that's maybe got a cash prize at the end of it or something. But the agent part, I'm a little bit more leery on. I would be totally A-okay with it because I know it's inevitable anyways, but can we get these guys officially licensed? Like
no. That is because the NFL, you cannot do it. You have to be a part of the NFL Players Association or at least registered, certified. In college, you could have Uncle Joe who's doing your contract. Okay, family member or not, but they don't always know the rules or know how to handle things. It might even be hurting the kid, even though they are excited about what money they may get up front. So, yeah.
So you can hire agents, and that's smart, and that just seems logical. But I just, wish there was some assurance that these were legitimate agents and not Uncle Rico. That's all. Because there are just a lot of shady bagmen turned friends of the family and so on that are involved in a lot of these NIL deals. And when everybody was kind of losing their minds a couple of days ago about some of the exorbitant prices for mid-level types of players who are asking for blue chip type of money, I mean, those probably are not like the real legit agents that are going that far right away. And there's probably a lot of folks who are just, just a part of the system now because there's not really any guardrails to prevent Aunt Betty from being the agent for her nephew or whatever. So
nothing wrong with Betty's out there. By the way.
I mean, look, if she's good at her job, great. But I just like, as far as if we're really trying to protect the athletes, I would like to see licensed agents. And that's the only people I see pushing back on that idea are the people who are not licensed agents. It's like, no, the ones who don't have the licenses don't like the idea. Imagine that.
I've had high school coaches, even at that level, tell me about who represents the players as they're trying to find out where they're going to go to play college football and sign either in December or whenever they might do that. Here's a note. If we don't do this story that I'm walking off the set, which maybe a lot of you would like, Cal Athletics earlier this week informed staff, this is a week ago, that all members of the department's marketing, athletic communications, and creative services units, possibly as many as 25 people, will be laid off effective in June as part of a strategy of a complete redefinition of how we operate. This means that there are some people in the business that promote that school who are and also in a lot of ways watch these student athletes and what they do, where they go, all of that, the media coverage. They're the ones that do a lot of the press releases, and but they're cutting back. And Cal, of course, was in the Pac-12, now in the ACC, and I bet not many of these particular people who are being laid off make much money compared to a lot. You could get rid of one coach, and it would easily take care of the same amount of money.
Well, they got to pay for Jaron Chiave Sangapolotele's NIL money somehow.
And pronunciation guy.
Well, they've already done that. They've had videos out, so nobody's really got an excuse to not know how to pronounce it. There's videos out there of him saying his name, and they've got it on their website, I believe, as well. They are one of those teams that has, if you go look at the roster, I believe they are, you have the little ear icon that you can click on and hear players say their own names. It's just pretty smart idea. But I saw some knee jerk to this, and I feel like I mean, it is what it appears to be. They are losing money, and they do need to make some changes. And I'm sure playing halfway across country or all the way across the country in a lot of cases is certainly not helping them as members of the ACC right now. This was something I saw Pac-12 fans celebrating. And see, should have stuck around with us. And I look, they deserve to have some victories here and there. Although I would say, like, I don't know that Cal would make any different decision than they made the last time around, even if they were told, like, hey, in April of 2026, you're going to have to cut like 25 people from your staff because of costs. And this is what they're defining as a restructuring. So they're just kind of switching things around. And they themselves are saying that this isn't about where I guess used to be it just about was like promotions and putting the brand out there. Now you got to make money. And so they're making changes to make money. Imagine that to help fund, an athletic department that is spending like everybody else more money than they've ever spent before in their lives. So I don't think that if you could take the time machine, Cal, Berkeley would go, no, we're going to stick around in this new Pac-12 and just hang out here, because the TV deal still would have dropped immensely. And then where are you? Now you don't have the travel costs to go play Boston College in softball or North Carolina in women's basketball. But does that just offset basically the millions for travel versus the millions you'd lose in TV revenue and playoff money and tournament? Now I know the Pac had the war chest, so maybe they could have offset that. But clearly Cal was not thinking about that. They saw everybody leaving, and they got their boat off the island as well. We've seen a lot of these types of stories. And
is this also the possibility of them going to AI to do some of the business and work that the media communications, et cetera?
I don't think so, because I don't think I don't think that everybody can just go like, well, we need to cut costs, let's AI this thing. I mean, there's still a lot of problems with AI.
Here's a quote: cutting your marketing, communications, creative teams while maintaining dual AD structure. They have two ADs, two co-ADs on cross-country travel in the ACC, and now outsourcing it for revenue and authentic storytelling models is gross and soulless.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see that. Who's that from?
That's from the guy that wrote the story, Ken Furlong.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I know that they are creating a new studio. It was Strawberry Creek Studios, and that's going to be a part of the storytelling wing. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of it other than a lot of schools out there, if not all of them, are losing money, some worse than others. And unfortunately, we talked about this as being a possibility when all this maneuvering was going on with NIL, that there's going to be some heads that roll. And unfortunately, it sounds like there at Berkeley, it was some creative people, and hope they land on their feet. But yeah, it says Cal is moving forward with a new integrated external model called Strawberry Creek Studios, which will align all external efforts around two primary objectives: revenue generation and authentic storytelling, which you kind of mentioned. It's in this write-up not clear how the athletic department intends to fulfill the functions of those being let go. But the email sent to staff said it plans to post 20 plus new positions within a week, and those who receive termination notices will have the opportunity to apply for assignments within Strawberry Creek Studios. So it sounds like we don't have the full picture yet, and that some of these people could get hired back, but it is a very jarring headline, especially when you're waiting on headlines like this.
Here's Ken Levica. We've had him on before when it came to the Pac-12 and Cal. We've crossed the Rubicon. The TV ratings are up. It's not even close to an accurate indicator, though. In the health of college athletics, it seems like they could be in deep trouble. Or remember, Ron Rivera is their GM. He's not doing that for a couple $100,000. Oh
no, and they're already very well known to be like in the what is it, in the black or the red? In the red. So they're very much known to be in the red in general. John Wilner had a story on that. Here within the last month or so, that they're like $20+ million in the red. So yeah, they're trying to cut costs. They're also, I guess, going to be hiring potentially some of these people back, but in general, they are just an example of, I think, many other schools that are just trying to figure it out. And sometimes it's not the fun headlines of hiring a bunch of people. You're having to fire people and let them go to reorganize. Now, whether it works for Cal, we'll see. We'll have to let time take its course and see how this Strawberry Creek Studios thing works out for them. I've seen a lot of other schools try to do their own studios and try to do their own channels and try to do their own things. And there's varying degrees of success, I think, that we've seen for some of them. But yeah, this is another example of everybody just trying to adjust as best they can to turn into these corporations trying to handle big business college sports nowadays.
I want to, Dennis Haiti, and we always like your feedback, and sometimes you cross-check us, and that's fine. But he said, if I had $1 for every time Chandler Morris was mentioned on the show in the past 6 months, I'd have to purchase a decent steak or two. He has been, and I said this to you, I think you're overreacting with your first comment about why is he always the one mentioned. He's been the poster boy of the offseason of eligibility, sustainability, and extension, and he lost his case. Well, we have nothing against Chandler Morris, and like I said, I've known his dad forever and like him. But to say that we're mentioning him and focusing in on him is because his case, 7th year, is the one that's been pretty much most of the offseason story when it comes to that.
Well, Chad, I just want to, I'm sorry, what was his name?
Dennis.
I just want to say, I think you're overreacting. I don't know if you're related to the Morris family or not, but yeah, it's nothing personal. We brought it up because we were talking about eligibility, and the most recent eligibility case that was settled was Chandler Morris's pursuit for a 7th year. When Owen Heineke's case gets settled here in the coming days, which we're expecting at the end of the week, then we can use Owen Heineke as an example of somebody who either successfully, like Trinidad Chambliss, when he was all the rage, and you remember that. I don't think we had problems when Trinidad Chambliss was getting brought up a lot. And then it became the Chandler Morris story. And then it became, and is now going to become the Owen Heineke story. And before that is the Diego Pavia story. And before that, or after that, I should say, before or after Trinidad Chambliss, I can't remember the timeline, is the Joey Aguilar story. They're the most recent examples.
Yep. Just so like the Miami tight end was McCormick.
Let me finish
last
here.
year.
So I think you're reading a bit too deep into it. And you wouldn't be able to afford a very good steak because it hasn't been mentioned as much as you're trying to indicate. But yeah, over the last 2 or 3 weeks when that case was getting decided, it did get brought up because we were talking about said story. And then I said it in passing here because, again, that's where my brain goes with the most recent eligibility case. So, yeah, man, nothing personal to you or to the Morris family or whatever. But yeah, that's all there is to it, really.
When we come back, Josh Furlong covers Utah football. He'll be next. And then after that, we have John Cooper, our lad's guide to the draft a week from tomorrow. And then also Justin Spears, who covers Arizona football, the Wildcats, and what they have coming up. Hey, tomorrow we have Sonny Dykes. We have Craig Bohl, American Football Coaches Association, Evan Miyakawa on the basketball transfer portal, and Houston cornerbacks coach. We'll have him too. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. How can he do that? You need to contact him. Otherwise, how does he know? You're just maybe wherever you might be. So contact him, Dr. Kent Petty and his staff at pettycliniclowt.com. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, and maybe that is you. Your energy is not the same, and everything else has been the same. And Father Time is going to affect parts of your body. It happens, your health or whatever. And then maybe your sex drive has dropped. That happens too. Look at all the commercials talking about it, and they do grab your attention if you have that problem. But it also could be as simple as your testosterone level has dropped. Dr. Petty can help it increase. Contact him. He'll get you set up for an appointment, take care of the appointment, get your blood work results, and get in touch with you and say, no, you're fine. It's not that. Or, yeah, your T level's pretty low, and put you in a program to help you increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be and need to be and used to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
That's my go-to guy. Can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery for my G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
We're celebrating the Declaration of Deals at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. Cash in on $11,000 off a new Ram 2500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or choose 0% for 36 months, plus no payments for 90 days. Feel secure with America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels.
Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
You got batteries for my side-by-side?
Yes.
Replace my flashlight?
Sure thing. What about my business?
Oh, good one.
100%. Batteries for my fleet of trucks?
Gas floor scrubbers?
Yes, and fire panels.
We have pallets of batteries.
Well, what about...
As your go-to guy, if it needs a battery, we have it.
Well, that's all you had to say.
Could have led with that. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Josh Furlong, KSL Sports. He's been with us before as we talked Utah football, the Utes with Morgan Scally, as Whittingham is in Michigan. We appreciate, Josh, your time. Craig Smoak and David Smoak, the Smoak Show on 365 Sports. So, obviously, there's a lot of attention. It's Scally's first spring football as the head coach. How, in your opinion, has the transition at least looked and gone as they close it out here pretty soon?
Yeah, the transition has been pretty smooth. Morgan Scally's been on staff for quite a while, so it's not something that was, jarring by any means. With that said, there's a different spin on it, right? Like Morgan's going to have his different take on things, and I think a lot of people expect him to be kind of the Kyle Whittingham, next level guy. And there's some elements of that he's going to take. He loves to have his culture, loves to have that kind of element, but Morgan, he brings a different energy, a different vibe to this team. And so I think you're seeing kind of a renewed sense for this Utah team in terms of kind of how they produce and what they're able to do. So it's been interesting, but I think so far, it's spring. It's hard to predict anything, but there's been a lot of positivity coming out of Utah right now.
Josh, when we look ahead, just the Vegas odds, just various people's prognostications, Utah is right there with BYU as far as like who could contend with Tech. And that's despite losing both tackles to the NFL in the early rounds of the draft, losing their head coach, losing the OC, like all these different things. How confident are you that like they could possibly just not skip much of a beat because of Morgan Scally? Or do you have some like, hey, wait a second here, guys, there's still a lot that is unaccounted for right now?
There's definitely going to be some hesitations and some questions, mostly surrounding around the offensive line. Utah loses, like you mentioned, the 2 tackles, but you lose the entire offensive line. So you've got 5 guys that you're trying to replace and trying to gel, and anybody that's had to go through that understands how difficult that can be. And there's confidence that this offensive line can be what they need to, at least at a level, maybe not as much as last year, but at least to a level where they can compete. But this is a team that feels like they're going to be right in the mix. They feel like they've got the talent to be there, build off that 11-2 win season last year. You've got a schedule that is pretty favorable to you. You don't play Tech, you don't play some of these other top programs in the Big 12. And so it's not, I don't want to say it's not challenging, because any coach is going to have a challenge, right? Especially their first year, and there's things you're going to learn. But I think there's confidence that who they have on their roster, especially in the position groups that they've upgraded in, that they feel like it's just kind of a continuation of last year. You get your star quarterbacks back. Devin Dampier is starter and his backup in Bird Ficklin, who is going to be utilized in a lot of elements for this game or this season, excuse me. There's a lot of optimism that this team can be what they need to. It's really just, I don't want to make it simplistic, but at the same time, I think it's going to come down largely to that offensive line. And if they can get it done, I think this team can be a competitive team and at least challenge for that top tier of the Big 12.
You brought up Dampier and Ficklin, the quarterback situation. How refreshing is that now, Josh, after the constant wanting to know and not knowing because of the guy that helped them win a lot of games in Cam Rising?
Yeah, I mean, it's so nice to be able to have kind of the set guy, right? I mean, coming in last season, Dampier was clearly the starter, but you've got a dynamic backup that you can't just leave on the sidelines. And so they're going to utilize both of them. And the best thing about it is they both truly operate in a tag team effort. They're best friends. They want to be able to, do different things for the team. It's not a true kind of starter backup mentality. I mean, it is in the sense that Devin is your starter, right? Like there's no question that he's going to get the bulk of the reps. It's not like they're going to be splitting reps, but I think you're going to see a lot more packages where both of them are on the field and you're going to try to utilize their strengths in different capacities. Now, maybe some of that's used as a decoy, maybe that's utilized as some trick plays type. But I think you've got a true best friend relationship. And I don't say that loosely, right? I mean, I've been around these quarterback rooms and they talk about being good friends, but these two genuinely, they do everything together. They're always, by each other's side. They're talking each other up. There's not a lot of animosity between them. And I think it's going to be refreshing for Utah to just see your two leaders coming out of that quarterback room, knowing that whomever is under center is going to be able to help you get to where you need to go.
Josh, with Bird Ficklin in particular, I mean, just what an electric player. Where do you see him needing to take the biggest steps forward to continue becoming a more polished player?
Yeah, for him, it's mostly it's just experience. He got one start last year when Devin had to go out for an injury, and his passing, it wasn't great, but it was a freshman start, right? I mean, it's the first time he's gotten to do that. A lot of people saw what he could do in the run game. He's elusive. He can escape. He rushed for 10 touchdowns in backup duty. He can do it. The question for me is if they really want to utilize him more as a quarterback, you've got to see his passing abilities. Now, this year more than ever, we've gotten an opportunity as media to watch practices, and he is a better passer than Devin. I think in terms of the true mechanics and everything, it's just coming down to it, having the confidence, being able to be confident in what he does. That's where it's going to come, right? I think there's electric throws that Bird Ficklin can make. It's just doing that on the regular, doing that in game situations, knowing that you're the guy. That's where his progress needs to come. There's no question that he's a dynamic athlete that can do whatever he needs to on the field. It's just a matter of piecing that all together so that if he is the guy, he can do it in a consistent rate. And so I think for him, that's kind of the development, the next steps for him. We talked to the offensive coordinator today, Kevin McGivern, and he said Bird Ficklin is one of those guys, when he rolls out, he has some of the best rollouts and passes that he's ever seen. So, there's potential there. It's just a matter of being consistent, getting that experience, growing in the system, and then knowing that, next year, assumingly that he's going to be your starter, and what does that entail?
So how often, you're there every day or whenever there's access, and for those in Salt Lake City or Houston, Utah fans, but for a lot of people, they still talk about this is Morgan Scalley's first year, Whittingham's in Michigan. How often, now that things are rolling along, is Whittingham even brought up anymore?
It's not. I mean, there's Morgan Scalley has a ton of respect for him. And, if Whittingham is ever brought up, he's never going to do anything to change that perspective. But I mean, this is the Morgan show. And I don't get any sense from the players or any leftover coaches that are still there that they're kind of holding on to the Kyle era. It's not that they didn't like that era. It's just there has been a full buy-in under Morgan Scalley. And part of that is Morgan operates this. Yes, he's a very competitive football coach, right? When you're on the field, you better be competing to the best of your abilities and giving it all for the team. But off the field, he's much more loose and casual and just relaxed, where the weight of the world is on his shoulders, but at the same time, he treats people as if they're people. He respects them, and that permeates throughout the team, where there's this full buy-in because he treats people as individuals. So it's not you're the third, fourth guy down the bench. You're a guy that is an equal member of this team, and he treats you as such. And so I think that's kind of why there's been kind of this gelling and, the quote unquote culture thing that everybody wants to talk about. That's what he's trying to do, and it's working. You're getting a lot of people pushing in the same direction. There's not anybody out there, well, I'm sure there's somebody out there thinking they would love to have Whittingham still back there, but by all accounts, it sounds like the players and coaches, they're all pushing in the same direction, and they love what Morgan Scalley's doing.
And Josh, if I heard you correctly, it sounds like Scalley also knows the media as well. I mean, allowing more open practice time to view things. That's huge, man. As a guy who used to be at every practice that I could and get every little bit that I could, it makes a major difference, I think, just in general around your program when you have access versus limited access. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, our job as media is to inform the fans, right? And if we can't see it, it's a real struggle to kind of understand what we need to do. We have sources, we have people we can talk to, but you're getting their side of it. And so when we get to see it in a setting that's not a game, it just gives us so much more context. So whether it's writing or we're talking on the radio or we're doing whatever we need to, there's more context to back that up so that we don't misportray, what's going on. So I think there's value to that. It's more additive than it is anything else for a program. And yes, there's problems. I understand coaches worry about that because maybe us as media, we're talking about somebody that they don't want poached from another school. Truthfully, I don't know how much that's really going to change things, but I think the more that we can give access to the fans, the better informed they can be. And so it's not this, there's going to be casual fans and people that come and tune in periodically, but I think the more that you can inform the fan base, especially from our perspective, that gives us all the better reason to be able to give them the content that they need without trying to be like, I don't know, I didn't see it. So it helps. I think it's far better to understand it. It doesn't change necessarily how I report things other than giving me more context, but it gives that understanding of what's happening, what they're trying to do, and helps us understand that aspect of it.
How much do you think, I'm sure Scalley and the offensive line coach, they're about to have two guys that get drafted in the first round. There's a really good chance that happens. That's got to be huge when it comes to who they're looking at in the portal or who they're looking at as eventually a high school prospect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the development there on the offensive line, it's always been pretty solid, but to be able to have two guys that could potentially go drafted in the exact same class who came up together, they started as freshmen, that's a huge selling point for these offensive coaches to be able to say, hey, look, if you're ready, we can get you in there, we can build you up, and we can develop you to be this type of caliber. It was a big reason why Utah was able to sign a 5-star offensive tackle this last recruiting class, their first ever 5-star, because you had guys like that. You have the development, you've got the experience, and now you have an offensive line coach who played at the highest level at a very, talented level, and with the Carolina Panthers, that helps, right? And so all of those things stack on each other. And when you're looking for any competitive advantage, those things help. Sure, money talks, and that's part of it. But I think if you can show that you can develop these guys, all the better for you, knowing that you've got two top-tier guys going in the first round potentially, and there's a chance that maybe some of those other guys go later on in the draft, and that only adds to that.
Josh, Lord willing, we'll have you on again like in 2 or 3 months and do like a proper preview of everything. But who would you say is like the new name to know, whether it was through the portal or through traditional recruiting? Who's like the exciting player in your eyes that they added this offseason?
Ooh, that's tough. There's a lot of guys in individual positions that are popping off and kind of having their moment. But I think based on where this program has been, where it's always just been kind of establish the run and then everything comes off of that, Morgan Scalley and Kevin McGivern are trying something a little bit more different, and they're trying to be more aggressive in the passing game. And so that being with the receivers is going to be vital. In that area, Utah brought in Braden Pagan and Kyrie Scholes, and both of those guys have lived up to expectations. They both come from the G6 level, Utah State and San Jose State, respectively, were great producers there, did a lot for their respective teams. Now they get an opportunity to kind of be the cornerstone of what Utah is trying to build in this receiving game, right? Where Utah hasn't always been a traditional pass-heavy program. And they're not going to go full tilt to pass every air raid type system, but there's going to be a higher emphasis on getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands to the receivers and trying to be more aggressive that way. So I think those two are probably your two keys there. But I could go down the list and find a bunch of these guys. They hit really well on a lot of their transfer portal players. And a lot of those guys showed up in spring. They did exactly what they wanted them to do. And so there's going to be a lot of great talent coming out of this roster. But I think if we're at the top of that list, those two are probably the guys that kind of just, you need them to be able to take that next step in your evolution of what Utah's trying to do.
All right, one thing to close it out here, U-Day coming up this weekend. Everybody's kind of doing spring differently now. Some people are doing it the old school way still. Some people are just doing glorified practices. Kind of how's Utah doing that under Scally this first time around?
Yeah, so they've always had the spring game, but this time around they've decided to do away with it. But they wanted to give fans an opportunity to meet the players. And so what they're doing is a fan day just solely for football. They usually do one in fall where it's all the athletic teams and you can go meet them all. But this one is solely for football players, and you can go in, get their autographs, chat with them, take pictures, that kind of stuff. And so they're trying to at least give some elements to that where you can still meet them. But yeah, you're not going to get the spring game. Morgan Scally wanted to have at least one more practice. And honestly, they made this decision too before the NCAA had their decision about the quiet transfer or the ghost transfer, whatever we're going to call it. And so I think it was more just a protection for themselves, as well as understanding that one more practice can make a big difference for this team. And so that was kind of the way that they wanted to go. So, it's unfortunate for fans, but I think they're trying to make up for it with this fan fest and do the best that they can with this. But yeah, you're not going to get to watch any real football until fall.
Man, good stuff, Josh. Great to have you on the show. Good looking hat too, by the way. I can't wear one of those like big bill hats. It doesn't fit me.
No, those don't work for you. They work for him though.
I got a massive forehead, but I like kind of not the old floppy college baseball hats, but like in between that. That's good looking hat. Appreciate you for being a part of the show, Josh. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Josh Furlong with KSL Sports with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, he does a great job covering the Utes, and enjoy his work and enjoy having him on there to talk some Utah. A very interesting team with the changes this offseason at head coach and just the entering of a new era after all those Whittingham years, all that success. It's exciting. It's the unknown, but it's the excitement of the unknown, I think, that really gets you ready for Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin and all these things they can do. And yeah, I cannot wait to see Bird Ficklin. I mean, Devin Dampier was good, but Bird Ficklin's just, man, as one-dimensional as it kind of was for as far as what we saw. And he talked about that because he had the one start and we need to see more of him throwing the ball. But man, oh man, was he electric with the ball in his hands and just a total difference maker for them. So, and Dampier's not too shabby himself. He can make some pretty big plays, but yeah, that's an interesting ball club right there with all that's turned over, and very much a team that, despite all that, people feel is going to be in the mix right there at the top of the conference.
If I had to just off the top of my head, so what are 4 teams that you're going to have in your top 5? There's no question Utah will be a part of that, if not even higher than that. When we come back, John Cooper, our last guide to the NFL draft. It's a week from tomorrow. What's happened, changed, or what is he seeing, hearing, speculation, and more? He's next on 365 Sports. And we appreciate Rez and Garrett Andrew for helping and doing what they do every single day. Please hit the like button if you haven't. Subscribe if you haven't. Pass the word if you don't mind with the Smoak Show. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat General Manager and CEO is Ted T. David Gray, he is the man in charge of General Sales Manager. There's Trey with new car sales and more. DJ, when it comes to pre-owned. Leslie, Rolando. There's a lot of great people at that dealership. I was there earlier today. Here is what, and Landon Brown set me up with this to drive for a couple of days. This is a Jeep Cherokee. It is spectacular. Gorgeous looking color and more. I drove that from the dealership. It's been raining a little bit on and off. Control was great. Inside is spectacular. It is the 2026 model year Cherokee Overland, Jeep Cherokee Overland 4x4. 37 miles to the gallon, all of the bells and whistles, some things that I don't have in the car that I drive, which is a pre-owned car that I bought at Allen Samuels. Everybody there was like, hey, this is this and this and this. And Langdon explained everything to me, making sure when I drove off the lot that I knew exactly what I had. And it is spectacular. 2026, the Jeep Cherokee Overland 4x4, beautiful car, inside with all the amenities, all of the upgraded from ambience of inside, how it feels, how comfortable it is, to the amenities as well that you need when you're driving, whether it's around the corner, whether it's to the grocery store, whether it's to go play a round of golf, or whether it's to go out of town. And that is available right now. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Join the celebration. It's 27 years for Richard Car Motors, and we're celebrating with big anniversary savings. The GMC Sierra delivers strength, power, and a refined interior loaded with premium comfort and technology. During Richard Car's 27th anniversary sale, find savings like $9,000 off all Sierra 1500 Pro and SLE models in stock. Thank you, Central Texas, for 27 years. Log on, call, or come by today to find big anniversary savings now.
Richard Car, they have the truck for you.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
Appreciate your time. 365 Sports and the Smoak Show will take you to approximately 5:30. And now joined by John Cooper, our lad's guide to the NFL Draft, who's helped us along the way with different ins and outs of what's happening as we close in a week from tomorrow from round 1. John, thank you very much for your time. It's just kind of maybe a boring question and maybe kind of a little bit vanilla, but has anything caught your attention, movement, speculation that's true or could be true since the last time we talked with you a week ago?
That's a good question. I was just talking to one of the guys today about just that thing. we're going to do another mock draft coming up, and we're trying to figure out, are we going to make any changes, or how are we going to do this? And he says, well, maybe we should try to guess what people are going to do based on some of the stuff that was out there. And I says, yeah, but our lad's tradition has always been, let's just ignore that and do it the way we would do it if we were drafting for the team. So that's kind of where I'm leaning right now as we get into this other mock draft. Yeah, we've heard a few things. We're a little nervous about Avian Terrell's hamstrings. C.J. Allen, linebacker from Georgia, that we happen to really like. We heard that his pro day workout he didn't run, and his knee was a little swollen from the workouts. Coming off that meniscus surgery. So again, I don't know how big of a concern that is. I know that he's a guy that we think the Cowboys would love to have, or that's kind of who we speculate anyway. But it's going to be interesting to see what some of those medical reports end up showing.
So we were just talking to a Utah insider just about what's going on with the Utes, and they've got a couple big-time prospects, as you know, on the offensive line there, John. What's the likelihood that Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu go in the first round? And what are they kind of what's kind of the outlook for both of those guys?
I think both of them will have a good chance to go in the first round. We think Fano, in our mind, is just, again, it's pick what you want and what's important to you in a tackle. He and Maui Noah are probably the top two, and Monroe Frailing has come on, and looking at some of the tape from later in the year, we kind of like him. We could see him slipping up in the top 15, but Fano could very well be the best tackle in this draft. You got left tackle potential. Moo is a little more inexperienced. He's still got an upside play in some ways, but he definitely has first-round potential, and the late first round is kind of where we see Lemieux going.
Do you think at all, from the time that Mendoza and Indiana ran that 16-0, won the championship, one of those famous plays in a diving scramble, has anyone ever thought, because it's the Raiders and they need help everywhere, but a quarterback, has the Vegas Raiders in any way changed or had any kind of, well, maybe that's not the right choice?
I don't know that for a fact, one way or the other. I think in their draft room, I got to believe there's talk going on all the time about, is there another player that might be better for us in the long term, especially now we got Kirk Cousins. We still have Aiden O'Connell. I still think it's going to be Mendoza. I would be very surprised if they came off of that. Kirk Cousins is an older quarterback. I think he's going to be a good mentor. Fernando Mendoza can be a JV player, so to speak, for a year, learning, and that's a realistic option, and that's the way it used to be in the NFL. This is kind of a new phenomenon, and maybe in the last 15 or 20 years, where we get quarterback we take's got to step out, off the bus and start from day one, and I like the idea of drafting Mendoza.
John, we're here at Cowboys Country. There's a lot of talk about packaging their picks and trying to move up to get a Sonny Styles. I mean, is there any sort of, trade discussion that you find to be more legit or more likely than maybe perhaps just some of the stuff that's out there in the ether in general right now?
Well, I think the Cowboys need a linebacker. And, we have C.J. Allen mocked to them right now. And I know I don't pay attention usually to other mock drafts, but my colleague just said, hey, look at these things, will you? And so I did. And I see he's mocked there, but there's also some speculation that might not be the pick because of the injury situation. So if that's the case, trading up to try to get a Sonny Styles makes a lot of sense, because I'm not sure there's another linebacker, worthy of a first-round pick that fits what the Cowboys need, and they need one. They need a corner too, so they could use help at all levels of the defense. Truthfully. So, they could take just the best player available at one of those positions of need, with their two picks.
Is there a chance that they have that 12 and 20 pick? I don't see them sitting there and waiting for the draft to come to them, but there's some school programs that have done that. Franchises like the Steelers used to do that, and it always worked because Jerry wants to be they're moving up or down or both. Is there a way that they have made mistakes in free agency that lead them to have to make up for it in the draft?
Well, I wouldn't be aware necessarily of any specific things that they would say that they did. I thought the trade, to get Kenny Clark was a nice trade. Michael Parsons, they gave up a great player, but getting that extra first round pick and then another one next year, that's worth its weight in gold.
Mm-hmm.
And if they see a player, now let's say they really want Sonny Styles, I got to believe a team like the Giants would be willing to look at trading down to get both of those first round picks. If you're going to go down from 5 to 12, you're probably going to want at least a second rounder. And I think that's a legitimate option. If Sonny Styles is a guy they really feel they need and there's not another linebacker, I could see them trading up from 12 to someplace like 5. And I could see a team like the Giants being willing to move down, depending on what they get back from Dallas and what Dallas is willing to give up. I'm sure the asking price is going to be, both the other first round pick too, but they may settle for less.
John, who's a guy that's not like a consensus, like everybody thinks this guy's going to be great? Somebody that maybe is more, you're more sure about, ready to put your name and our lads on the line, that you think this guy's going to pan out, that maybe there's mixed opinions on. Who do you feel most confident about that will pan out, that's not like specifically a star name on the radar for most people?
This is a tough year for that, in terms of that, because I'm pretty sold on Ruben Bain, whereas some people are starting to back off because of the wingspan. Not wingspan, because the arm length. We don't feel that's a problem. We think this is a great football player, even though he's, maybe a little undersized, underlength. But we look at the kind of player he is and what he brings to the table. We still have a lot of confidence that he's going to be a real good player. That's one.
Bain had the car wreck, et cetera, that eventually someone died. That came out. And then you had even David Bailey with a post-game back and forth with a photographer. Are these stories that are being floated out on purpose to try to hurt their draft stock so somebody else may get them?
It doesn't surprise me. I know that used to go on. I was told that by a general manager. That stuff goes on all the time. That's why you got to listen and decide what's real and what's not. And don't believe half of it. Don't believe half of them being a problem. So, I think there could be some of that. I don't know for a fact, but there is. It's just speculation, one way or the other. It just depends. There's been some things that have been tweeted out, about different players and this and that. But I think the one thing that I've heard nothing but good things about Sonny Styles, and I could see a team like Dallas really trying to trade up to get him. I could definitely see that.
John, next year with Jeremiah Smith and Arch Manning is going to be like absolutely insane if that's how it works out in some of these guys. But I was just kind of looking ahead a little bit. But as far as receiver goes, I know there's various guys that have been in and out of the first round, the Mekhi Lemons, the Jordan Tysons. Is there much separation between the top receiver and the rest, or is this all just kind of a group of kind of like you said with other positions, like take what flavor? Do you like strawberry? Do you like cherry? It kind of depends on what flavor you're looking for.
Well, I think, for example, let's take receiver. Let's take Carnell Tate. What does he bring to the table? He's kind of like a T. Higgins type receiver. He's not necessarily a burner, but I'll tell you what, he can catch everything. Got great catch radius. He's 6'2". He goes up and gets the ball. Is he going to blow you away downfield? No, probably not. But he's going to make a lot of catches. He's going to make yards after the catch. And he's going to catch a lot of footballs during the season. If you target him, chances are he's going to get it, unless a defensive back or someone makes a great play. Mekhi Lemon has very good speed. He's not quite as big. Great route runner. Very quick in and out of his breaks. Some people think he will make a great slot receiver. The guy that I don't sleep on is Jordan Tyson, because he's got the speed, he's got the hands, he's got the size. He's had some hamstring issues that have kept him out of workouts, and I think there's some concern, and I think that's dropped him down in the draft. We still see him as a top 15 pick. So I think it just depends on what you're looking for. Back in January, we thought that, or even December, we felt Tyson was the top guy. And we've got a guy that lives at Arizona State practically, and one of our former players, my former players, is a special teams coordinator there. and they are really high on him. And so there's a feeling there that maybe we're missing something, and that maybe Tyson's the best guy. It just, now we've got some biases obviously that we have to be careful of.
Mm-hmm.
But that hamstring, those issues can be real. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes down.
I don't remember who said it, but I heard someone mention that if Tyson didn't have that he would be a top 5 pick. Is that how high he would be?
You know what? I think so. I think he could be. Let's put it that way. I look at the Giants. I think the Giants are the team to me that is going to really, in some ways, control the draft. I mean, because at 5, there's not necessarily an absolute player that fits what they want that's worth that high a pick. Sonny Styles kind of duplicates Tremaine Edmonds to a degree, although he's still a great player, and they could certainly use another linebacker to put 2 of those together, like John had when they were at Baltimore at different times. But I could also see with all the needs the Giants have, they trade down. So that's why it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that pick.
John, I was curious because I was bringing up already, like just mentioning next year, and I was thinking about like probably what y'all thought a year ago, that now you're here and it's not true or it's changed, and what people probably think for next year that's going to change over the next year. But how far ahead do you look? Like you clearly been spending so much time on this year. Do you look past that, or is that even possible? Like how does like the Our Lads method work, so to speak?
No, we don't really look past this year. We have a database of players already. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are guys that just went in the portal this year. And so because of that, we have some players that, we know about them. We know Arch Manning. We obviously know about him. Right. I mean, we wrote an article about him, and we actually did some things with him 2 years ago. So we know about him. There's a tackle from Miami that we were certain was going to come out. Not certain, but we had a good idea. It was Ahmad Moten. And we think he could have been the best defensive tackle in this draft, but he decided to go back. And, we talked to some of the teams, college guys that would love to see him get in the portal and transfer for his senior year there, but he's wanted to stay at Miami. And so that's an interesting scenario because, him staying in school to play at Miami for one more year. He played for the national championship. He's a really good football player. So a guy like that, we know about, we're aware of. But as far as starting to stack the positions, we haven't done any of that. We take some time off and we start that up in the summer.
I'd hope you do, man, because y'all do a lot of work. And I know like right now it's crunch time and we got a week out. So I was just kind of curious how that worked. But I know we'll be talking to you about Arch Manning and Jeremiah Smith and all the rest of the crew in no time at all.
Yeah, that's this is like studying for a major like law whatever, like law school, right? And you do it every year. How many years? We sometimes take it for granted. How many years have you done this, John?
Let's see. This is my 2016 is kind of when I went full time, with this after I retired from coaching. But I had quite a bit to do with Our Lads from about 1993 to 2005 before Dan got involved. But Dan and I are close friends. In fact, I introduced Dan to the owner, and he bought the company in 2005. And me taking a head football job, I wasn't available anymore. So I told Dan. Dan said, "When are you going to retire? When are you going to retire?" You know how many times he asked me that. But my association goes back to 93. And I did some things for Dan even while I was coaching, with linebackers. And I made a couple trips to the Senior Bowl, take a couple days and went there and watched them and watched some film. And so I guess if you count those years, it's been 1993 on.
Dan Shunka, one of the originals when it comes to Our Lads Guide to the NFL Draft. And John, we have really appreciated it. I think we maybe after the draft, or even I'll see what you're doing on Wednesday. But one more time before, is it okay? Maybe next
sure.
week?
Yeah, I'm. I got something next Wednesday later, so I'm like I do tonight too. But yeah, I'm available next week.
I'll lock you in. I'll text you 4:00 Central. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Thank you, and the great guide, by the way, you get Our Lads guide to the NFL draft. And it is, I mentioned this, it is phenomenal with the way that they have the depth charts, and then you can fill it in based on as the draft and offseason goes on.
And they have their latest mock drafts and various versions and just all sorts of information. They do a great job and have for a really long time. It's been good to have him on periodically to kind of just check in on some of the more interesting names or potential storylines there. I really wish the draft was this weekend. It just feels like it's a week too
You've mentioned
long
that,
of a wait.
like, you're right. You had the tournament, then the Masters.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice for this to, like, tomorrow be the draft. It would have just like
it would have been
melted all together.
Freaking-tastic. Then I don't know what would fill the void of next weekend. But no, it's good to have kind of this run of events. But I definitely am at the point of it's still fun to talk about. But now I'm really ready to see where these guys go. And as far as like next year, there's already a lot of hyping up. And this is the regular case every single year as you start looking ahead and, oh my God, next year's class. And we talked about this like a few weeks ago. The quarterback class on paper for 2027 is really ridiculous when you're talking about Arch Manning and the possibilities of, because guys could always come back, but there's like a grouping of Arch Manning and Dante Moore and Julian Sayin and Trinidad Chambliss and Jaden Mayava and God, who else? Lenore Sellers and like just all these different names that make it sound like really, really fun. And you know that some guys are going to fade from that list or stick around longer if possible or whatever. But you look at that, you mentioned Moten from the big defensive monster up front for Miami, who will be out. Jeremiah Smith, obviously. But yeah, Arch and Jeremiah Smith, I feel like, I don't know, the last draft will have two guys who have probably been so hyped from high school all the way up to the NFL draft, but have lived up to that in some regards. I mean, almost impossible to live up to it for both those guys, but we'll see how this year plays out, of course. But yeah, it's exciting to also start looking ahead. Like, well, what about next year? And who's going to have the number one pick? Are they going to draft Arch? Are they one of these other quarterbacks I mentioned? Are they going to get Jeremiah Smith? They're going to get Moten? Like, who would it be? But I try to ask him because I can't remember what the talking points were this time a year ago that I know are going to shift to where we finally arrived. And what we're talking about right now of all these guys I just mentioned, like something will shift in the next year to by the time we arrive here,
there'll be a new,
we're like, Lenore Sellers, no way.
There'll be in fact, remember a year ago at this time, he was a Heisman, like someone that people thought because South Carolina ended the year so well. But yeah, there's a group of running backs that are just salty. Obviously, at wide receiver, we watched Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith grow up right in front of us like they're children.
Ryan Williams still has some catching the football on a regular basis jobs to do this upcoming season, I think, to really be who he can ultimately be. Super athlete, great skills, but lacking in the catching the ball area in particular. That's really a headache for Alabama fans at time. But yeah, he'd be another name that you would see right up there at the top of the 2027 discussion. But 2026 still got another week and a half, or I guess a little over a week from tomorrow before we can finally start hearing those names called. And undoubtedly it will be Fernando Mendoza at number one. But after that, like, party on. We'll see what happens. And I'm excited as a fan of somebody who's in the top 10 that at least had enough success 2 seasons ago that it's not like being a Browns fan where it's just you're always in the top 10. Washington's been used to being in the top 10 for a while, but they kind of like got away from it for a second to make the playoffs, and it was great. And so now, like, back in the top 10, I'm okay with it because Jaden Daniels needs some help. By the way, did you see the new uniforms?
Yep, they're right here.
Okay.
Garrett, Mr. Ross.
Thinking about for off the radar, but we can do that now.
I know, we can do this tomorrow. But yeah, they look clean. They look like the ones that they were forever under Joe Gibbs and company. They did add the spear to the W on the side, by the way, which I love that because that's the old Washington Redskins helmet back in the, I think, 50s and 60s.
Yeah, I may do the you might want to show that picture right there. Did you show that one right there? And I don't know how. I'll have a better graphic for tomorrow.
Yeah, there we go.
It's probably hard to tell.
This helmet here is the black helmet with W, but it's got the Florida State like spear, like Washington had for the longest of times, right through the W. Yeah, thank you, Rez. Great stuff. There we go.
Yeah, so
see the spear? Look at that. That's beautiful. God, that camera's
So
really
I've
nice.
seen some graphic artist folks who have pointed out, well, actually, the spear wouldn't go through the W like that proper way, and that's valid. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that just so it doesn't drive me insane when I watch them, but I like the idea of it and the concept of it. And yeah, when they brought their throwbacks back and they just had the regular W helmets that they had started wearing, you're like, well, that should just be the damn uniform. Like the old uniforms with the updated helmet that you can't obviously do the Chief logo on the side. So that was out, but yeah, just put the W on there and leave the rest of it as is. And that's basically what these uniforms are. It's just the old Redskins uniforms with a different logo on the side of the helmets. And then the black uniforms, which I felt were not that great. It looks like they updated some of the lettering on those as well. And with that updated W logo, that looks way sharper than kind of the gradient white jerseys they had. You know what I'm talking about? Where the numbers kind of like faded and they were dotted. And I didn't like those.
I'm watching the last Super Bowl champion Washington in the uniform.
I think they did a great job with it. Josh Harris, well done.
34 years ago.
Yeah.
All right.
So
yes,
hopefully,
I did.
hopefully Jeremiah Love is wearing that uniform.
Yeah.
Although there's no chance he's going to be wearing that uniform.
We have much more to get to. Some more college athletics business. And a couple of other nuggets, and we'll keep you up to date. We started and talked about LIV. If anything does change, as they're meeting in New York City right now. We also have one more guest today, and that's Justin Spears, who covers Arizona. He'll join us today. Hold on. I finally remembered to use it. And we've got a bunch of other good stuff. Tomorrow, I'm excited about. I love the guest today, but I am looking forward. Sonny Dykes, Craig Bowl, and many others. Evan Miyakawa tomorrow on the show. This is 365 Sports. I was in Dallas yesterday as I took my brother to Love Field and stopped at QC Kinetics on Central Expressway 75 in Dallas and got to meet Shane Fry, owner, and many others that are there that do treatment for you, the patient, or for me, the patient. I saw Meredith, who's in the marketing department. It was such a great trip because Shane and I had not met. We've texted each other, emailed, etc., and it's just a great business. I want to start with this. When you look at like annoying chronic pain, whether it's your neck, whatever joints, your back, or wherever it is. For example, when you sleep at night, do you find yourself sleeping on, like, let's say it's your left shoulder, and it feels okay, but you're going to wake up because you know you got to turn over. And then if that's something you're dealing with any kind of pain that's in your body, the aches in your body and joints, fix it. Get it fixed, the pain that keeps you from getting a good night's sleep. You don't want yet to look at the possibility of getting cut on, which is, by the way, surgery, and then all the long length of the recovery. You're at the end of your rope. You're frustrated. Steroid injections have not helped, or painkillers, or other, like just simple aspirin. QC Kinetics can help you out. They're going to take what is inside your body, the blood, the platelets, the plasma, the stem cells inside your body, take it out, spin it, and put it back in you so you heal you. Think about that before you think about doing anything else. Treatments are easy. They're done in the office. I don't think I've ever been in an appointment where I was there, waited more than 5 minutes or so, and nothing as far as the treatment has ever taken more than about a half an hour. And part of that is when they're spitting what they have taken out, the plasma, the blood, the platelets, and more. It's QC Kinetics. Don't wait. Why not take care of that issue today? And others have tried and it's not working. At QC Kinetics, the number's on the screen, 972-972-8610 in Dallas, 713-913-5285 in Houston at QCkinetics.com. Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio, this is 365 Sports. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
The Smoak Break with Craig and David Smoak. We appreciate your time, and we will get to the super chat. We appreciate that, among some other comments inside.
This isn't the Smoak Break.
The Smoak Show. And, okay, so Rez, we're going to pause what I was about to say. So at the end of the show, I was going to bring this up. There's every day in the chat room, Bracket Cat and others ask about when is the next Smoak Break, which is what Craig does occasionally during the week. And it's about whatever the hell is on his mind. So I was going to tease that because I know Bracket Cat and others have asked about it. And so we have a guest coming up in a few minutes. Let's do this, and then we'll worry about the other stuff later.
Well, I appreciate those who have asked about it. There's been a lot going on in the background, and hopefully we'll be able to get into a routine once we figure some things out about how frequent and on specific days. I would like it to be nailed down same time every week. I'm sure the people producing would like that as well, but got to get some other things figured out before can go full bore into that. Once that gets figured out, then I will be able to tell you on a consistent basis when that will be. But I plan on recording another one tonight, so that means it should probably be out sometime tomorrow. We'll see, knock on wood. But I should have a couple more before the end of the week, and we'll go from there. But, yeah, it's on the 365 Sports channel, so if you're already on here or if it's another reason for you to subscribe, then you can do that. And there's not many pictures that are flattering of me, and that's certainly another one that's not. But I can't change how I look. So
yeah, that's just they just caught you right
somehow
there. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like when YouTube takes a video, I never, ever have a video upload where it's just like a regular face. It's always mid-sentence. You would think my mouth never closes saying stuff, or I'm always like,
I think that's the way it is with most everybody.
Like eyes are like not symmetrical or whatever. But yeah, it's a let's say 10 to 15 minute, hence the smoke break name and a play on my name, obviously, but it's originally something that was mostly about college football. But let's face it, man, like we've got college football shooting at our ears. And so sometimes it's fun to talk about something else if it warrants it. And so, for example, on the latest one, I talked about just how not excited I am for this weekend's WrestleMania and just kind of how out I am right now on TKO Sports. And this is coming from a guy who is as big of a UFC fan that didn't like practice Muay Thai and get that into it. I never wore tap out shirts. I never got like that far into it, but man, I was watching every big event several years ago when it came to UFC. And then it just got watered down and greedy, and TKO did TKO things. And I'm not into it. There's a severe lack of star power. And the TKO thing's bled over into WWE. Ever since they bought them, it's been about high ticket prices and celebrity involvement, which is not out of the norm for pro wrestling, but to the point of like, hey, wrestlers, do you want to be on WrestleMania? We'll see if we can have room for you because we got to make more time for Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee and I Show Speed. I Show Speed's actually awesome, but
what is that, a singer?
He's a very, very popular streamer, like maybe the most, I don't know who's the most popular streamer in the world, but he's in the conversation. He's actually pretty great. McAfee, I would prefer him to just leave wrestling alone for a while, especially given his recent return. But I riff on that a little bit and just how WrestleMania is coming up this weekend. But TKO, and I know I'm not alone in this, has strangled the love that I have for this sport out of me as of late. And I'm not the only one that's feeling that way. So that's an example of just some off-the-wall non-college football things I talk about. But I do get into college football as well. And I'll probably have one on Owen Heineke, I would think, when that decision comes down. Just talk a little bit about that since it will be the latest big eligibility decision. So, yeah, a smoke break, just a few minutes, a couple times a week, and check it out on the YouTube page.
It's been going on for weeks, and I keep asking, and I know that there's been some communication and time and when can it get up and a lot of different things we have moving parts. And I know you've talked to Garrett about it and Andrew. So there it is. That's up. It's in the chat room, and it's really good. It's opinionated, and it also kind of spitting some facts, which is what the Dragon does even during this show. All right. So we'll have one more guest on Arizona football here in a minute, and Justin Spears. But I want to bring up – now let's do that. Let's take a break and come back with Justin Spears, and then we will have Louisiana Tech switching conferences, but it is not going to be cheap. I spoke or traded text with their AD, Ryan Ivey, who used to be at my alma mater, Stephen F. Austin, and he's going to join us once it is official about leaving Conference USA for the Sun Belt Conference and more. That and more. We do appreciate your time, and this is 365 Sports. North Star Funding Partners. Have you heard of the new IRA, Insured Retirement Advantage? The Insured Retirement Advantage is a smarter way for you to help yourself achieve your savings and retirement goals, as it will help you out. But you have to get in touch with them, and I'll tell you how in a minute. Create a supplemental tax-free income stream. Maintain liquidity for other investments or business needs, and also protect your family in the long term. Transfer wealth efficiently. It's a unique solution for clients who are financially strong, make a minimum of $150,000 annually, but haven't yet achieved their savings and retirement goals. That can happen. Call 623-256-6902, or you can go online with NorthstarFundingPartners.com and make sure you tell them you heard about this on 365 Sports. The IRA, the new IRA, Insured Retirement Advantage at NorthstarFundingPartners.com.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective, Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio, this is 365 Sports. Presented by IdealMRI.com. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. That's ideal. And by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. Now it's time for 365 Sports.
All right. Justin Spears is asking me to send the link for what we will do. So I'm doing that right now. Hopefully he'll be able to see that. I thought I did. And there it is. Let's see if he can get it. Sometimes it does go in the, especially when I send it with my amount of emails that I send out to high school coaches, it can go into the junk folder very quickly. Most of the guys that work here at 365 Sports send it there on purpose.
I don't know. I want to hear more about producing on air. There's so much of that going on with the messaging or the message not going to the right place. So yeah, we got to produce on the fly sometimes. And so that's what we're doing here, I suppose. But guess we got nothing to pivot to here.
No, yeah, we do. We'll bring up Louisiana Tech. So they're moving from Conference USA to the Sun Belt Conference. Here's the deal. It cost them $8 million, but it's all but done. When I've talked to those in the administration at Louisiana Tech, they expect it to be official. This was 5 hours ago, within 24 to 48 hours. And what they're doing is moving from Conference USA to the Sun Belt Conference. The fee is more, being reported by Front Office Sports, $8 million. UTEP is paying to leave for the Mountain West Conference, and they also will be ahead of the curve here. But there are some teams that have left. It was like $1.5 million. This is the deal, and La Tech's going to have to pay that money.
Well, I was probably like a lot of people hoping to see the 20-game schedule and how that was going to work for them, as they had that for a couple of months officially on the on the docket. But yeah, they had to get this sorted out. So good for La Tech to go ahead and bite the bullet, cut the check, and move on with their lives into the Sun Belt Conference. So that'll become official on July 1st. So it'll be a big July 4th celebration there in Ruston, I'm sure. But yeah, this was playing out behind the scenes, and jostling with Conference USA to try to figure out this exit. And Conference USA gets a nice hefty $8 million to spread around however they so choose. And La Tech gets their desired wish and gets what in theory is a bit more stability. But it was funny there to see the 20-game schedule, two conferences that had given them schedules to play in 2026, and we needed some resolution to figure out which one of those schedules they were going to play. So now we know, and it will be in the Sun Belt. So nearly a year after initially getting that invite, this process finally comes to a close. But I'm interested. There's all this jockeying at the top level that took place a couple of years ago, and then we've seen how that's trickled down and some of the moves that have been made to try to better position not just the bigger names, I guess you would say. The Sun Belt is, I think, adding a team that makes a lot of sense, and it's a big check to cut. But I think the Sun Belt's one of those conferences you look at and you go, kind of like the SEC, where you're like, it still makes sense. It's still like, it pretty much makes sense of like where the teams are and the regionality of it. And I think that's led to some new rivalries that have become interesting, because now you got teams that are close to each other that now have more stakes in the game, and just the lack of geography regionality that we get in a lot of these other matchups sometimes. While you can still create new rivals, I think you see that with something like Tech and BYU. It's always good to have geography that makes sense in college sports.
If you're Sam Houston State and you're in Conference USA, that was the closest team in your conference was Ruston, Louisiana. So they're now it's still some teams in the at least south, or El Paso's like getting in an Artemis and flying up to the moon. How far away? By comparison to the $8 million, and then Justin Spears is ready. Southern Miss, Old Dominion, and Marshall only paid $1.75 million to leave the conference. And so they're paying $8 million. Did you have something else to add? We're now joined by Justin Spears, Tucson.com, and joins us on 365 Sports. Justin, thanks for your time. I really haven't. Hey, by the way, great job with us when you were at the Final Four with the Wildcats. That didn't end very well with what happened in the semis, but it's been kind of quiet in Tucson with Brent Brennan in Arizona. Is that a good thing?
That's a really good thing. And first and foremost, guys, thank you for having me on the show. But yes, it's absolutely a good thing that things are quiet. That means that things are not so chaotic, and people are kind of just happy where things are at right now. And, there's a lot to feel good about with this Arizona football program, because when Brent Brennan first took over, he inherited a roster that had some really good players, but then injuries and a number of things happened, and it led to a 4-8 season. So Brent Brennan got off to such a really bad start at Arizona. And then, going into his second season, he had to sever ties with a couple of coaches, guys that he's been coaching with for a long time, but it was for the betterment of Arizona football. And he changed up all the coordinators, brought in an up-and-coming play caller and Seth Dagey, who played quarterback at Texas Tech and, has made his rounds around other Power 4 programs like Ole Miss and Purdue and USC. And he's a really good play caller and really a good fit for quarterback Noah Fafita. And then they, promote Danny Gonzalez from linebackers coach to defensive coordinator. And you look at what they did this past season on defense. They had arguably the best passing defense in college football. They had the most interceptions in the Big 12. They had more takeaways this past season than touchdowns allowed. So this Arizona defense, they did such a great job of getting interceptions and forcing a lot of takeaways. And then special teams, they also had a new coordinator in Craig Nivar. And, there were some moments where the special teams, really hurt Arizona, or, they just didn't have their bright moments. But the future is very bright with Michael Salgado Medina, a guy who has made some big time kicks for Arizona this past season. He's going to be back. They added an Australian punter and Chase Ridley, who's been really booming the ball during spring football. So the coordinators, they've all done a good job of really establishing themselves as really good coaches and really good leaders of men. And then you got Brent Brennan at the top, who's such an easygoing guy, a guy that you want to root for, a guy that you want to play for. And, it led to, really a perfect storm for Arizona. They went into the transfer portal. They knew that in the pyramid of college football, there are the haves and the have-nots. And Arizona, they may not have the same resources as, say, in Ohio State or Georgia or, some of these other high-profile programs. So they went out and they got guys from Power 4 schools, guys that weren't playing. But just because you ain't Michigan good, like right tackle Tristan Bounds, does not mean you're not Arizona good. And Tristan Bounds came in and stepped in and was a really good right tackle after just kind of being the backup at Michigan for several years. So they got guys from the Power 4 level, and then they also got the group of 5 guys and also some FCS players too. And these guys were really big time contributors for Arizona this past season. And then when you have a really good leader like Noah Fafita, who, when you look at him, you may not think that he's, a high level quarterback because of his size, but the dude is an ultimate leader, the ultimate competitor. And that's why after this upcoming season, we're going to be looking at Noah Fafita as arguably the greatest Arizona quarterback of all time when he sets the career passing yards record. He already passed Nick Foles for the touchdowns record this past season. Now he's going to be going for the passing yards. So historic season for Noah Fafita coming up. And, things are just really good for the Arizona Wildcats. Sure, they would love to win that Holiday Bowl and get that 10th win of the season this past year, but the program is heading in the right direction, in a direction that Arizona fans are really happy with.
What was the response to Brent Brennan getting that contract extension? Because he was a guy who you thought, even as quickly as he was being put on that hot seat, like a year into it, it's like, oh, he's already kind of, there's question marks about it. And then they have the year they have, and they justifiably reward him. But are Arizona fans all in on like, yeah, he absolutely deserved it? Or is there still some trepidation of like, well, you didn't have to give it to him that quickly. Like, at least let him do it another year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, Arizona fans were definitely all in on Brent Brennan. They've always been all in on Brent Brennan because Brent Brennan is the kind of guy, and he will be the first one to tell you that this is a destination job, right? With Jed Fish, we knew that Jed was going to leave at some point. Like, we knew that this was the program that really got Jed Fish's career off the ground. But with Brent Brennan, his wife went to the University of Arizona. He coached under Dick Tomey here. His brother played for the Arizona Wildcats. Like, this is it for him. Like, Brent Brennan's either going to get fired or he's going to retire here. Now, the way Brent Brennan is, the kind of coach that he is, and just how honest he is about where Arizona is as far as the pecking order. He's always striving towards getting more money and getting more resources for Arizona football. So that way the Wildcats will always have a seat at the big table as college football continues to evolve. But he also understands that, the type of players that he wants to bring in, they have to fit his culture and really the family environment that they have at the University of Arizona. So yeah, people love Brent Brennan. They want to root for him. They got a sour taste in their mouth after Brent Brennan went 4-8, but Brent was very honest with himself and, had to make some changes, really shook some things up. I mean, this past year they had over 60 newcomers on their team. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was a lot of turnover. And when you have that much turnover and then you go from 4-8 to then 9-4, Arizona fans were then like, okay, you know what? This Brent Brennan guy, he's actually a pretty damn good football coach after all. Let's get things going.
I didn't look at exactly where some of them came from. I think one of the offensive linemen that transferred in may have been at BYU, if I'm correct, but they have like 4, I believe, in the front 2, and 3 of the starters at least listed in some depth charts. That doesn't mean that that's what Arizona's released, but how much of those guys are seasoned and what they expect from them?
Yeah, I think the transfer offensive linemen, those guys are going to be, very impactful as far as depth pieces. But the Wildcats also really love what they have coming back. I think really the ultimate piece that I'm looking at is Zachary Henning, the transfer from Washington. He seems to have taken a leadership role with the offensive line despite being a newcomer. I've heard a lot of good things about his maturity and just kind of his football IQ, and that's what you want as a center. And so Zach Henning matching up with Noah Fafita as the leaders of the offense, I'm really excited to see that. But then the returners are some interesting pieces too, because at left tackle, you're probably going to see a guy like Matthew Lotto, who's been with the program now for a couple of years, but he just got really his first game reps this past season. So I think, working in the weight room and continuing to get that experience, they really like what Matthew Lotto brings to the table. And then they moved Rhino Tapatotai from tackle inside to guard. And this is a guy that had a lot of, that was dealing with some injuries, had a season-ending knee injury in 2024, and then came back, played some tackle, but was, kind of struggling to move, and also was, committing a lot of holding penalties.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got this mauler mentality. And so they recognized that and said, hold on, let's maybe move him inside to guard. So he's been getting reps at left guard. Right guard, you have Alexander Deuce, who's, now a 3-year starter, and is, 6'7", 340 pounds, just a big body. And then you also have, Tristan Bounds at right tackle, the guy who came in from Michigan. This was a guy who got hurt, so he's not, playing this spring, but he was really awesome in his first year at Arizona, and he was able to get another year of eligibility. So they described it when they got Tristan Bounds that extra year by the NCAA. When they got that news, it was like a big sigh of relief in the whole room. And Arizona's offensive line is in pretty good shape. And then they also, like you added Jake Allen, the transfer from BYU. He's getting some reps at left guard. Nate Hale, the guy from San Jose State, he's getting some reps at tackle. So I really look at those transfers as, kind of like the depth pieces. And then a guy like Zachary Henning, he's definitely going to be that anchor right there in the middle at center.
So when I was doing a little bit of research just throughout this offseason on various schools, the thing that stood out to me about Arizona was obviously the success Danny Gonzalez had right away. The defense was really good. But, man, that secondary is losing a lot, aren't they? I mean, you're looking at Genesis Smith and Traden Stukes and Dalton Johnson, like core guys to what made them successful. Can they just carry? Do they have the guys to carry that on over? Are you expecting a little bit of a pullback there as far as the secondary goes? Like, where are you on just having to replace what was a really good group of guys last year?
Man, we're about to find out. And, we kind of got an early look at it during the Holiday Bowl, when those three guys that you just mentioned, Genesis Smith, Dalton Johnson, Traden Stukes, they opted out. And so, and that really hurt Arizona because, one, SMU has a really good offense, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, those three guys, they're your two safeties and then the nickelback. So they're like right there in the heart of your defense, and replacing those guys is a tall task. And so SMU recognized it early on. They kind of picked on Arizona, and that's how they were able to build up a 24-0 lead going into halftime. Give credit to Arizona. They fought back. Danny Gonzalez, the mad scientist that he is, he looked over at cornerbacks coach Chip Viney during the game and said, give me your 4 best corners. And then Chip Viney was like, okay, here's my 2 deep. And then he's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And Danny Gonzalez put 4 corners in the secondary, and it helped out Arizona's defense, and they were able to claw their way back into the game. So I think Danny Gonzalez is a great in-game coach, a great in-game play caller. He knows how to make all the adjustments. And so I have confidence in Danny Gonzalez that he's going to get Arizona's defense to continue to play at a high level. But my goodness, I mean, Traden Stukes played there for 6 years and was a really good player. I mean, he's rising up NFL draft boards and could go as high as the second round, during draft week. So, replacing that is a tall task. Genesis Smith is a really good safety and was one of the best safeties in the Big 12. Then Dalton Johnson was a tackling machine, and Dalton Johnson and Traden Stukes, those guys were first team all Big 12 selections. Yeah. The last time Arizona had 2 defensive backs as first team all conference selections, you got to go all the way back to 1972. So, I mean, those guys were really important to Arizona's defense. They played 6,700 snaps. That's how many snaps they combined for at Arizona. And it was all at one school for the Arizona Wildcats. So they got a tall task replacing those guys. There's no doubt about it. But they went defensive back heavy in the portal. They added 8 guys. They actually moved Matai Tagovailoa from USC. They moved him from linebacker back to safety. So 8 defensive backs. And then they're returning Javion Cole, who had 4 interceptions last season at cornerback. And then Gavin Hunter, he's a mature piece that's, ready to take that next step. So they're very confident in the pieces that they have in the secondary. But yeah, those transfers, I really like Malcolm Hartzog from Nebraska and Dalen Austin from Oregon. But we'll see, just because some of those guys are, kind of banged up or limited this spring. So, we really won't get a sense of how the depth chart looks until, the training camp. But yeah, the defensive secondary, that is certainly something to look forward to this season.
Hartzog, I know because I'm a Nebraska fan, but he's the one that saved the game against Cincinnati in that opener with the pick at the goal line where he reached back and then he didn't play anymore. It's like, that's it. So he's a pretty instinctive guy, but he's an itty bitty guy, but he does seem to play bigger than his frame as far as height and weight.
Yeah, and he's much different than Stooks. And that's the crazy thing is Malcolm Hartzog is going to be kind of like the new Stooks. He's going to be playing some slot cornerback. And Stooks is 6'3". Malcolm Hartzog is about 5'8", 5'9". So there's definitely some height difference. And I've talked to the coaches about it. Brett Arcee, the safeties coach, and he mentioned that Malcolm Hartzog, he's like a pit bull, man. Just because, he lacks height, the dude is super aggressive. He also has a nose for the football and just has really good instincts for a guy who's undersized. So I've been very impressed with Malcolm Hartzog so far in training camp. Replacing Stooks, man, we're talking about a first-team all-conference defensive back. We'll see, but so far they really love Malcolm Hartzog, and he's impressed in spring so far.
Hey, man, I was just wondering, I mean, it's life in the Big 12 is just normal now because it's been a couple of years. We're fully deep into this thing, and I mean, you're younger, so you don't quite have the perspective of some of the older fans who watched the Pac for like decades. But I don't know, from your perspective and just kind of your age group, how do you feel like sort of life in the Big 12 has been these last 2-3 years now, and then it's all sort of stabilizing, at least for the time being, and this is the new lay of the land in football and also basketball and beyond?
I'll tell you what, guys, it's weird not going to California on a yearly basis. Like we're the farthest out west. So now I'm going to Iowa and Texas and all these other states that I really wasn't going to. And so it's been a lot of fun, honestly. Like as much as I miss the Pac-12 and everything like that, going to California and everything. But I think that the Big 12 overall is just better from a competitive standpoint. And you guys will be happy to know this. I mean, it's the reason why Brent Brennan is moving the students from behind Arizona's bench, and they're now moving the visitors over there. So there's Arizona, they're switching sidelines this season because of their time in the Big 12. And there was a rule in the Pac-12 that you could not put students behind the visitors because of heckling and all that. In the Big 12, they don't give a damn. So when Arizona first played against Kansas State, Brent Brennan at the Arizona Wildcats, they were right in front of KSU's student section. And Brent Brennan told me, he was like, man, they said a lot of interesting things about my mother. I will say that. Yeah. And so he was like, wait a second, we don't have that Pac-12 rule. Okay, so yeah, now we're going to move the visitors and we're going to put them in front of the Zona Zoo. So they understand, they feel the competitive environments. Brent Brennan said, after his first year as the coach of Arizona, he looked at the line of scrimmage and was like, oh my gosh, every single week, there are some big ass boys that we're playing against. We need to add some size. So the Big 12 has really just kind of elevated Arizona, I would say. And I think Arizona has a really good place in the Big 12 as a football program, and especially a basketball program. I think that Arizona and BYU and Houston over the last few years, I think they've done a really nice job of establishing themselves as Big 12 schools or really prominent basketball programs. And so, yeah, life in the Big 12 is awesome, man. I love going to, Manhattan, Kansas, and Ames, Iowa, and Cincinnati, and trying Skyline chili. Like, this is awesome, man. I love Big 12 country.
Yeah, don't eat the chili in Cincinnati though. We'll get you some real chili if you get over here to Texas. I'm sure I know that's always been like, where's the best barbecue, where's the chili and all that. But I bet it is some new scenery. Although the views on the West Coast in California, et cetera, are awfully beautiful as well. Sure. Good stuff, Justin. I'm glad that we got to know you during the Final Four. And, of course, Tommy Lloyd, the new deal, and the Wildcats are rolling. Transfer portal looks good, too. So thank you very much for your time, and have a great rest of the week.
Man, you guys reminded me of Texas barbecue. I need to get a Texas Twinkie from Hutchins Barbecue in Fort Worth.
Yep.
Oh,
that's
my goodness.
exactly right.
Hey,
yep.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, buddy. Justin Spears with Tucson.com and covers Arizona, and got to know him right before Arizona was hammered in the semifinals by Michigan.
Why you got to bring up old stuff? No, that's we didn't touch on basketball. Didn't need to. If Tommy Lloyd had gone to North Carolina, then I'm sure we'd be talking 90% of basketball because of all the turnover that would have created. But instead, luckily they keep Tommy Lloyd, and there's not really much to say about it. I mean, he turned down North Carolina, or turned down their overtures at least, and just kind of business as usual. You move on and keep it plugging, and hopefully they can go that extra step next year. But yeah, that was a bum way to have such an incredible season end. But you know what, man? You look around at the Big 12 and the new teams, and they're all I think like as far as the question marks go, Utah was the least question mark, like the littlest question mark, because you just kind of assumed, oh, they're really good in football. They'll come in, they'll be good in football. And that's all you really like, whatever. And then Arizona's like, I don't know. They've been kind of good at times. And well, basketball will be there, but football's been better than expected. Arizona State didn't quite know what to expect there, but obviously football goes and wins the title in the first year with Kenny Dillingham. So that was great. And then still kind of waiting on Colorado to see what all that's going to look like. Ultimately, they're in a space where I don't know. I'm kind of ready to put them over in another bucket that's got a clear definition, but I know others are kind of still waiting for maybe something to break their way. I'm losing confidence.
And they might be feeling the same way. They brought in eyeballs and money the first year because of Dion and the fact they were coming off that first year with him. So yeah, everyone else has kind of come in and taken care of their business and gotten better and given the conference a lift.
Having said that, Colorado hasn't done nothing. They did have a Heisman Trophy winner 2 years ago. And then a lot of attention because of not only said Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter, but the Sanders kids as well. So they've brought some ratings at times, but yeah, can Colorado sustain something, I think, is the question. The early season eyeballs are there. It's when they get into the weeks ahead, then you're like, oh, that kind of fluctuates a little bit. But yeah, the Arizona schools is really what I was, I guess, mostly getting at, was didn't quite know what to expect other than Arizona basketball should be pretty good. They should fit in incredibly well. Beyond that, I don't know. But both have delivered, and both have been solid, and it's been fun to get to know their programs and some of their beat writers and some of their coaches as well. By the way, do you know what the Texas Twinkie is?
No.
At Hutchins Barbecue?
No.
Would you go for this? Jumbo jalapeno.
No.
Stuffed with 50-50 cream cheese and chopped marbled brisket, wrapped in thick-cut smoked bacon, wrapped in thick-cut bacon, smoked for 2.5 hours, and finished with a sweet glaze.
Okay. I've had maybe 4 or 5 times in my life a cream stuffed jalapeno bacon wrapped. I've had that.
And that's
basically what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's got the chopped marbled brisket, though.
The
that
brisket
I think
in the middle is pretty cool. I'm not a big jalapeno guy because my first experience, I almost guzzled about a pint or whatever, a gallon of milk. I'm not against the jalapenos, but never been like a big cream cheese guy.
It's not my favorite, but I can see where it'd be probably cooling compared to the jalapeno. And then some people out there watching are like, jalapenos, like what kind of low, weak sauce kind of palates do you guys have? I admittedly suck when it comes to any kind of spicy food. I'm like, do not take me to an Indian restaurant. It will not be worth anybody's time or efforts or anything. So yeah, I'm not a big pepper guy, but the cream cheese and the brisket and the bacon, like that can offset any moderate heat from the jalapeno. But here's the thing about it is it's a popular appetizer, and they de-seed it and they soak the jalapenos to reduce some of the heat. So it's not even like jalapenos aren't too hot, but they make them even less hot than they are. But they are a popular appetizer apparently at this barbecue restaurant that does not sponsor us, but we'd love for you to, Hutchins. Available in 12 or 24 packs. It's like more party for multiple people there. But yeah, that's one of the many places that some of the new booties to the conference can visit, and then everybody else gets to go to Tucson or Tempe or Boulder again and Salt Lake City and enjoy some of the new fairs there as well. So that's been a cool part of all the newness, is the new places, new spots, new food, and all that kind of stuff.
All right. What do you want to do here? We've got some stories, college football coaches, news and notes.
I say we roll on into trivia and all that. We save some of it for tomorrow.
Well, let's do this first. Got a super chat. Rez, do we have the super chat available? Let's do that, because that's always great to see. No. So I'm sorry. Put it down. My fault. We're going to do the poll first, and then we'll do the super chat later on. So let's take that down. Let's do the quizzes. No, the wheel. I'm all out of whack. Let's do the wheel. Here we go with the wheel.
What's one thing that scared you as a kid and maybe still does now for Andrew, who puts these together? It is a roller coaster.
What was one thing that scared me as a kid? Maybe it still does now.
And by the way, for anybody new joining us, this is our wind down to the show. I know we did not introduce it all that smoothly, but we're entering the game.
Oh, I thought
portion.
It was very smooth.
Oh yeah, smooth is a patch of rocks.
Now, see, I'm not as scared of snakes as I used to be, because now I'm more intrigued by them, and I've encountered them enough to where. But I mean, they petrify me. I still occasionally. I used to sleepwalk, but you're not experiencing it because you're sleepwalking. I still end up having a nightmare that something's over my face and am claustrophobic. Does that work?
I guess so.
Yep. I used to sleepwalk like a son of a bitch. I'm telling you, it was bad. But I still have, for whatever reason, your sister Jennifer has that same issue about being claustrophobic. So that's what I'll put. Roller coasters is one I can see where a lot of people, some it might be the high-rise overpasses where you get worried about the height.
So I like roller coasters. I've had no problem with those. I've never been scared of getting on a roller coaster. Some are a little bit more extreme than others, but I have no issues with those whatsoever. I do have more of an issue. I think I'm not scared of a whole lot. You do bring up the claustrophobia, and I did come across, I don't know why, but came across a couple of videos about these folks that do the cave exploring.
No, I couldn't do
and
that.
they end up in like really tight spaces.
Remember that group of kids that got trapped in the cave?
Yeah, they got stuck because of rainfall that flooded the cave. They weren't expecting that, and that was a big blunder on their part. But I'm talking more of the people that go like as deep as you can possibly go, to where you can barely like breathe because you're in such tight quarters, and they kind of help map it out. And there's actually a very famous story that you would have lost your mind over about a guy who died in what they called the Nutty Putty Cave, because he went down a very narrow hole and ended up upside down, stuck.
Jesus. No, really, seriously.
He ended up stuck upside down.
How do you do that? I mean, what do you do?
Well, because, you know, it's like
die?
you can, well, he did, yes. Because he was so stuck and he was upside down for over 24 hours. So he ended up passing away from like a heart attack at that point, because they would have tried to rescue him, but they couldn't get him back out unless they would have had to have broken like multiple bones and potentially given him like extreme, like almost like maybe possibly paralyzed this guy, because that's how stuck he was. But that was the only way to get him out. And so they couldn't. And so, yeah, a bit more detail than probably anybody wanted, but he mentioned claustrophobia. And I literally read about this story like 2 days ago. So like it was fresh on my mind. It's just weird you brought that up. So for me, that freaks me out. I would not go in to do any cave exploring. No, thank you. But like being on top of a really tall building, I remember being on the Empire State Building, and I thought it was really cool. But even with the barricade, I'm like, I don't want to get
kind
too.
of that feeling that runs through your veins or your body.
Yeah, I don't like really tall heights. So you won't catch me like on one of the top of the UAE buildings, like the Burj Khalifa or whatever it's called. I would not want to do that. Empire State Building's where I tapped out.
Remember Baby Jessica? Or you weren't even born, perhaps.
I remember that. There's a
West
TV
Texas,
movie that my relatives
stuck in a hole, and that was like forever. I would literally my problem would be the breathing patterns, but I would panic, and then you can't breathe very well.
It's a very scary story.
Yeah.
Very scary story. Yeah.
So spiders in the chat room, diving. I used to be a little bit worried when I was like doing backflips on the what do you call it?
The diving board?
Diving board. My brother, Philip, could do it from the high rise or the upper area. But that was something I eventually got over. Spiders is one that a lot of people have spiders. That more than they have snakes.
I don't like spiders much. I'd much rather tangle with coming across a snake than like a batch of spiders. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
They're more scared of you. The snakes. Oh, no. All right. Good job, Andrew. Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback from some of you today in the chat room on that. All right. Now to the quizzes. We're on a roll here. I said that yesterday. In 1975, Elton John played an historic two-night show for over 100,000 fans, the first act at his legendary venue since the Beatles. In 1966, what stadium was it? I'm going to say it wasn't Oracle Park because at the time that wasn't even open. Fenway Park wouldn't be it. He ended his career, his last appearance, although you had said he's touring again, was at Dodger Stadium, and I watched that live for like 4 hours. So I'm going to say Yankee Stadium.
You're going to say Yankee Stadium?
Yep.
Why not Dodger Stadium?
Because and that might be why he ended, but I'm just, Elton and I are tight.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're a huge fan of his, and I like a lot of Elton's songs as well.
His last concert, he did it. It was live. They said it was going to be his last appearance in the United States, although those guys never do. I want to think it was at Yankee Stadium.
I want to say Dodger Stadium, and I feel like you talked yourself into it, and then you did like a hard right to Yankee Stadium.
You want me to look it up and cheat? No, I'm not going to do that.
No, I think it's...
Well, hold on. What's the chat say?
I think it's Dodger Stadium. It's Los Angeles. The Beatles, I know, had a very famous concert at Dodger Stadium. Elton had the big special that you talked about at Dodger Stadium. I don't recall anything with the Beatles at Yankee Stadium that I've ever come across, and I've read a good bit about the Beatles. I know it's not the middle two. So I'm going off of what I've actually learned.
He ended it at Dodger Stadium, so that's probably why. Not only is it a great venue, the weather would be great, but that's perhaps why, because it was 50 years ago.
Well, it's also because I've read about the Beatles having a very famous concert at Dodger Stadium.
All right, then let's do
Dodger
Stadium.
I'm telling you that I think it's Dodger Stadium here.
I'm still worrying about being stuck in a damn
Thank you. Elton John's 1975
now that's the
concerts.
One where he made his last appearance, and it was freaking unbelievable. I still have it I have it on tape.
Was the question about the last appearance?
No,
Okay.
it wasn't. I'm telling you, that's why he ended up at Dodger Stadium. You convinced me eventually on that picture. Those pictures are his last appearance at Dodger Stadium. All right.
Okay, so I was right. So Elton John's, or do you want to read this because you're an Elton John fan?
No, I'm upset with thinking about being stuck in a hole.
If you want to search that Nutty Putty Cave is what that story is about, the Nutty Putty Cave. Elton John's 1975 concerts were the largest single artist events of that time. He famously wore a sequin baseball uniform designed by Bob Mackie and changed the lyrics of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, one of my favorite songs actually, to Tequila Sunrises. As a nod to the local LA crowd, he eventually returned to the same stadium 47 years later in 2022 for his final North American tour date. So not a lot of responses. Yeah, 1 out of every 3 people got that one right. So there you go. I knew
Elton.
that.
Look at him. He's so cute. I love him. He's an unbelievable singer and entertainer. No, I mean, not like him like an emotional. I mean, I that's the day I take a day off if something ever happens to him. All right, next quiz. Which legendary baseball trailblazer made history by starring as himself in his own 1950s biographical, feature film?
You running out of gas here?
No, I'm fine. I'm still. You started talking about that greasy, peachy, whatever it was.
The Nutty Putty Cave.
God,
if you want to go read that.
I can't even imagine. You just die. You can stop breathing. It's over. I don't know who this would be. Jackie Robinson. I don't think Willie Mays ever did that.
1950s. I mean, I don't know the answer to this. I'm not confident like I was in that previous one that you tried to talk me out of. But I'm
going to say
Babe Ruth for some reason. But I'd be gladly passing that off to you if you think it's somebody else.
No, I'm looking up.
Don't look it up.
I'm looking up one. Was he even alive? Yeah, he died.
Okay, well.
So it's not Babe Ruth.
But we can't Google and eliminate the answers that we're given here.
But I thought he was dead. That's why I was just officially he was dead. I'm going to say Jackie Robinson.
Okay, Jackie Robinson. Hold on, let me Google. Was he available? No, we can't do that. So yeah,
I would
Jackie
not have
Robinson.
allowed you to pick Babe Ruth because I thought he was dead because of the book that I read. I remember that. I'm going to say Jackie Robinson. There we go. You can read it.
Just 3 years after breaking down the color barrier, Jackie Robinson starred in the Jackie Robinson story while he was later portrayed by Chadwick Boseman in the movie 42. The 1950 original featured Robinson himself depicting his journey from UCLA to the major leagues. And now that I see that poster on the left, I vaguely remember that movie being a thing. I mean, obviously remember 42 and the late Chadwick Boseman, but yeah, I kind of remember seeing that Jackie Robinson story poster. So, all right, there you go.
All right, so there we are with Jackie Robinson. Let's get to the poll results. And for $1 million, which pro-level challenge are you taking? 5 rounds with a UFC fighter, play center for an NFL game, or in one, catch 9 innings of Major League Baseball and a goalie for NHL game. I picked being a catcher for 9 innings. I'm dumb enough to where if it hit me in the head or what, I'm just have enough edge in me where I could get behind the plate and catch.
It would definitely not be 5 rounds versus a UFC fighter. I'm not trying
Would
to
never last very long either.
No, and just why take automatic physical punishment for nothing, really? I mean, for $1 million, yes, but if I can take less or no physical punishment for $1 million, I'm going to make that choice. So yeah, definitely not UFC. I mean, not quite UFC, but definitely physical, and not trying to block some of the big, bad, just ultra athletic dudes that are in the NFL on the D line, or the linebackers rushing at me, or the safeties blitzing. So yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. Probably 9 innings of Major League Baseball, just because I love baseball. So that would be fun. Although physically exerting for sure, catcher's got to be in a special type of shape to crouch down for 9 innings. But yeah, I think I'd rather do that. Goalie would be fun though, with all the padding. I just don't think I'd be worth an S at it, but that wouldn't be a bad alternative. So yeah, I'm fine with either of the bottom two.
It's about the same thing, really. Catching 9 innings of baseball and being a goalie and got the puck coming at you a billion miles an hour.
It's the same kind of positioning in a way, but it's different. You're not trying to like push the pitcher's pitch away from you.
Well, you're going to also, if you're a catcher in a baseball game, could be 150 pitches where a goalie's going to have to stop some shots and will miss a lot too. But okay, that's the catching was, by the way, Bracket Cat. No, who was it? Bracket Cat. Whatever you do, Smokey, do not Google Nutty Putty Cave nightmare fuel for the ages.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I didn't even look at it like something I was super scared of until I stumbled across it. You know, just you read a story that leads to the next and so on, the rabbit hole, if you will. That was definitely a rabbit hole discovery for me. And I was already never going to go deep into caves. I never would have found myself in that position, but man, there's a whole group of people that do. And yeah, that Nutty Putty Cave story will not create new people trying to do that. I assure you that it will.
That cave where the kids were stuck on that.
Definitely not adding people to that hobby for sure. So yeah, it is frightening.
Trip, they had to almost, didn't they have to almost give them Valium to be able to make that?
Oh, for the story overseas. Yeah. I mean, it was a group of school boys and their teacher. And I think they were on an athletic team maybe. And they were just doing the tourist things, and they didn't, I guess, heed the warnings about weather and didn't realize that when it rains that those caves can flood. And so they got stuck deep in there, and luckily had like a piece of rock that they could all stand on or sit on together. And then there was the whole ordeal. But yeah, when they had to take the kids out, they gave them like a Valium or something just to keep them calm, because they had to put them basically in like these sarcophagus type, these tubes, and then just pull them out for a rope system. So you talk about claustrophobia, you get put in this tight little tube, and then just you're at the mercy of being pulled under all this cave and water and whatnot. And so, yeah, they gave them a little chill pill, which I think, yeah, that was probably a very, very good idea.
You would have had to do that to me. Just you would. All right. Last poll question. Well, this has kind of got some darkness to it. When you think of Waco, what's the first thing you think of? And I'm going to have a story behind this, but 49%, the David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, Mount Carmel, 49%. 32% Sikkim Bears. 11% the Dr. Pepper, Original 23. They have a museum just about a mile or so from here. And Magnolia, the silos, where I took my brother just by that and a couple other places over the weekend at 8%. And I want to get into this in just a second.
So I'm not surprised that the siege is still top of mind for everybody. I mean, every 2 years, seemingly, there's a new documentary coming out. It's one of those historical events, like just of tragedies, particularly, that always comes back around and gets brought up amongst all the other things like OKC or the Manson murders or whatever. So yeah, that's never going away. Until Chip and Joe, that was clearly the answer. Magnolia's deflected some of that. I'm actually kind of surprised. And maybe if we had more of a female audience, like if it was mostly females, then maybe Magnolia would be higher. But just on a sports show, like, it makes sense that Baylor's number 2, because yeah, that's what a lot of people associate with. But I'm not surprised that the siege, the Branch Davidians, David Koresh, all that's number 1. People will tell you though, and I'm not from here originally. I'm from East Texas, but I've been here the last few years, so I'm not like a Wacoan in the traditional sense. But what people will tell you and what I learned when I got here was like, it wasn't in Waco. It was in, what's it called?
Mount Carmel.
Yeah, well, Mount Carmel, there's another name for the town. Can't hear you, Rez. I got headphones on, but I know you're trying to scream or somebody is. But so they will tell you like, no, that's like minutes outside, and it technically is, but it's just one of those things that gets rounded up into Waco, and it's never going to not be associated with Waco.
Here's the deal. I remember the siege. I was in a newsroom when all that went down, just like baby Jessica and the damn when she was stuck. But here's the thing. When I moved to Waco in June of 2010, that was, without a question, what people usually thought of. And I remember I started to travel, of course, to cover various sporting events around the country. We were in Indianapolis for a Super Bowl at a bar at the bottom of the hotel where we stayed. And the bartender said, "Where are you guys from? Texas? Where? Waco?" He goes, "Oh, RG3." That would have been January of 2012 because RG3 had just won the Heisman Trophy. And it was refreshing because I didn't know what he was going to say. Then eventually, Chip and Joe and the silos in Magnolia and all the makeover of homes. I took my brother by the silos. In fact, over the weekend, as I said, when we were going out to dinner, and he was like, "Oh," he didn't know much about it. But they've brought in an unbelievable amount of money and energy, and a lot of things have gotten nicer downtown because of them. But the siege was 10 or 13 miles outside of Waco, but Waco is the one that gets attached to it.
Yeah, Rez, is Axtell, would that have been appropriate? I think I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Would have been Axtell that would have been the better choice than the Waco?
Yeah,
you can just say it out loud.
Yeah, there you go.
Elk, yes.
Yeah,
okay, thank you. Yeah. I was saying Elm. Thank you, Rez, for that.
Yeah, don't say the Axtell Longhorns.
No, but Axtell or Elk, as Rez pointed out correctly, that's what I was referring to when some people were like, "That's not Waco, it was Elk." But it's like 10 or 15 minutes drive. And I always drive by when I go home. Not every day, but when I go home to East Texas, I always drive like in that vicinity.
Yep.
So there's like a little church out there, and there's like a little there's not much to it, but you can still go out there and visit, and that will always be attached. But RG3 definitely brought a different shade of or like a different coat of paint to the town, and then Magnolia has as well. For some people, for better and worse. It depends on who you are.
Here's the super chat on that same poll question from your pet cat again. He goes, "Unfortunately, the thing I think about when I think of Waco is a bad line of dialogue from a bad 2005 horror movie by the name of Ginger Deadman. The line in the quote, 'I was voted Little Miss Pretty Face of Waco.' I don't know." Thank you for the super
What do you mean?
chat.
You movie connoisseur? You haven't seen the 2005 movie Ginger Deadman?
Yeah, no.
I'm not familiar with it either, but I can see the humor in that.
Thank you for the super chat.
And certainly your pet cat again. 1999. Thank you so much for that contribution and for your 2 cents as well put on there. That's not one I've heard when people say, "What's the first thing you think of?" But we can add that to the list now for sure.
All right, we have a busy show tomorrow. We had a hopefully one you enjoyed today. Thank you very much, Andrew Valade, and also Rez. Appreciate you, man, and then of course Garrett Ross for being a major part of what we do. Our sponsors, you, the viewers, however you digest us. I don't know if we were able to get the feed back up on my Twitter timeline at David Smoak, which now is available too, along with at 365 Sports YT. For Craig Smoak and David Smoak, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow at 3. And this is 365 Sports. It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Declaration of Deals is at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get $11,000 off a new Ram 1500 Lone Star, plus 2.9% for 72 months. And America's best full-size truck powertrain 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty at Allen Samuels in Waco.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Now it's time for 365 Sports.